What happens when they've got all the immigrants out of the country? They will do the same thing the SS did in Germany. They'll turn their guns on everybody else.
I just wanted to weigh in on what I think happened and why Trump assembled all those generals and admirals. I think it started in 2020 when Milley finally said enough of this, when Trump held up the Bible upside down, and Milley obviously identified his role as not being part of enforcing the law.
I agree. He later apologized for that, in fact, in the press.
Yeah, and I think what happened as a result, right after that, and maybe you caught this and maybe not, because most people didn't, Trump then gave a speech talking about why the rank and file likes him and the officer corps doesn't. Mm-hmm. And he said that I'm keeping them out of war. So he was clearly driving a wedge between the officer corps and the rank and file. Now, what happened this week was he assembled those people to see how they would react to his new pitch with his the Department of War, Whiskey Pete, giving his ideas how we should approach the Department of Defense. Trump gets on, met with silence, unlike Fort Bragg with the enlisted people. Mm-hmm. He knows now that he's got a problem with the officer corps and the senior officers. Therefore, there's a purge coming. Yep. Many of them will be forced out. Yep. And the last thing I'm going to mention is the economy right now is perfect for Trump because it's allowing him to go into rural areas to take kids who are coming out of high school who have no job prospects at all because nobody's being hired. There are no job hirings.
Throw them into ICE.
Load up. That's right. That's right.
Yep. And ICE is going to become. And here's the big question in my mind, Brian. Let's say that ICE is now on course to be. I mean, they're in a massive hiring binge right now, $50,000 hiring bonuses and all kinds of stuff. But they're on a path to become the largest single police force in America, much like Hitler's protection detail, the SS, became the largest police force in Germany eventually. It took a couple of years, but it did. And the question in my mind is, the SS initially was participating in getting the people out of Germany or rounding them up anyway and putting them in camps, that they argued were not true Germans. That was the Jews, of course, and the gypsies and queer people, that they're not true Germans. And so Trump is going after people who are not true Americans. What happens when they've got all the immigrants out of the country and we still have 50,000 ICE guys running around with guns looking for something to do? That they will do the same thing the SS did in Germany by right around 1939, 1940. They'll turn their guns on everybody else. And, what do you think?
They, of course, they're going to take an oath to Trump and not to the Constitution. I mean, the one thing that's missing here is that when you joined, I was in the service, I was in the Marine Corps, and you take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, not the president. Teddy Roosevelt talked about that. The loyalty is to the country and the Constitution, not the president. Trump wants to change that dynamic, and therefore he's turning this into what he wants in his image and likeness, a police state controlled by him. But at the end of the day, Tom, here's what it comes down to. A third of the country did not vote in the 2024 election. That's how he won, right? And most of those people, I suspect, are suffering from his policies. If they don't get out and vote in the midterms after experiencing the pain of the policies, the beautiful bill and all that, and they don't come out again in 28, I don't know what the future of this country holds, Frank.
Well, this is why they're frantically buying up the media. This is why Larry Ellison and other right-wing billionaires are on the verge of taking control of CNN and TikTok, and they've already got the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times and Fox News and CBS, and I mean, it's just it's a wholesale attack on the truth in America, basically, on reality in America, and whether they will be able to sustain it, I don't know. I mean, right now it seems like the two walls, the two barriers that are holding for democracy are late night comedians, and arguably just all the Democratic Party. I mean, it's like and our generals, maybe.
Well, that's right. That's
Maybe.
right. It's they're the last line of defense.
Yeah.
They really
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, a friend of mine said, it was a Republican, said, "Are you hoping for a coup d'etat?" And I said, "I have no comment on that." But I said, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're in a position where we're losing our democracy. And the one thing is, when you talk to Republicans, they'll tell you, "Well, it's not a democracy; it's a republic." Of course. It's a democratic republic. You
That's
need
correct.
the people to vote their representatives. It's the demos, the people, the Greek word for people. But they completely dismiss the idea of a democracy because they are a minority party and they know how to rule in the majority by disenfranchising voters and controlling the media, Sinclair Broadcasting and other groups of that nature.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you. Brian, thank you. Well said. Thank you very much. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann University Book Club is Trump U, Promises, Lies, and Corruption, My Battle with Donald Trump's Fake University by Art Cohen with Dan Good. This is from Chapter 1, The Art and the Deal. I was in a vulnerable place. I found myself jobless in early 2009 after my consumer electronics company went through a forced sale. I'd poured my life into Ariel Inc. You might remember our AudioBug FM transmitters, ladybug-shaped devices that aired music from portable devices over a car radio. After Apple's iPod became all the rage, we developed, manufactured, and licensed products for major retailers and brands such as Best Buy's Dynex, Iriver, Kensington, SanDisk, XM Radio, and Delphi. Later, we looked to expand our wireless music transmission offerings with our own i21 brand, working seamlessly with the debut in 2007 of a new iPhone. Everything was going well until it wasn't. The consumer electronics industry was hit hard by the 2008 recession. Our major investor wanted to restructure the company and install new management. I was out as CEO in 2009. I wanted to find something new and fast. It wasn't a great time to be unemployed. The national economy was tanking, and to top it off, Silicon Valley isn't a cheap place to live. I worried about providing for my wife and 2 sons. At age 44, I found myself at a crossroads, an inflection point in my career. After spending 5 years as a CEO, I wanted to do something different and carve a new path. And then I came across a special invitation in the mail and a full-page ad in the San Jose Mercury News promoting an opportunity. Do you think you can profit in this market? You can, and I'll show you how, proclaimed the advertiser's headline underneath a photo of real estate developer Donald Trump. The ad promised the opportunity to learn from Donald Trump's hand-picked experts. He's the most celebrated entrepreneur on earth. He's earned more in a day than most people do in a lifetime. He's living a life many men and women only dream about, and now he's ready to share with Americans like you the Trump process for investing in today's once-in-a-lifetime real estate market. Come to this free introductory class, and you'll learn from Donald Trump's hand-picked instructors a systematic method for investing in real estate that anyone can use effectively. You'll learn foreclosure investing from the inside out. You'll learn how to finance your deals using other people's money. You'll learn how to overcome your fear of getting started. End quote. The ad featured a guarantee attributed to the man himself. I can turn anyone into a successful real estate investor, including you. So, why not me? Donald Trump was a name I trusted. I grew up in Philadelphia, less than 100 miles from Trump's home base, New York City, so I was familiar with his success as a real estate developer and as an author of the 1987 bestseller, The Art of the Deal. I'd made the hour-long drive to Atlantic City, New Jersey a couple times, and his last name was splashed across the casinos, T-R-U-M-P, and flashing lights. I consider the name Trump synonymous with success and wealth. At least that's what it meant for me back then. During the mid-'80s, while a student at Drexel University, I was one of the co-founding members of the D-Users, widely acknowledged as the first Macintosh users group. I was invited to a Hollywood-style event called Going National, hosted by Drexel on its campus. There, I met the legendary Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple. His inspiring talk that day imagined future computers using artificial intelligence to have conversations with the dead. Not literally, but using inputs known about, for example, Abraham Lincoln. The AI would bring Lincoln to life so you could have a modern-day conversation with him as if he were alive today. Jobs' talk inspired me to lead a team tasked during a competition with imagining the personal computer of the year 2000. There we were, to present our vision with an impressive panel. Science fiction writer Ray Bradbury, futurist Alvin Toffler, education writer and historian Diane Ravitch, computer pioneer Alan Kay, and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. A team from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign won the competition. They envisioned a tablet device that sounded an awful lot like the eventual iPad. During a luncheon, I got to sit at a table with Bradbury, and we began talking. He was amiable. He told me how his writing career didn't take off right away. He kept at it, day by day, year by year, and eventually success and fame found him. I love science fiction, and Fahrenheit 451 is one of my favorite books. Besides my father, Bradbury probably inspired me more than anyone else as a writer, something I enjoy doing in my spare time. The Project 2000 contest was beneficial in another way. It allowed me to connect with Apple employees and give them my resume. By 1989, I was moving to California as an Apple employee. I worked as an engineer at Apple until the mid-'90s, during the time before Steve Jobs returned to the company. I left to join a company called General Magic, where I worked on product and project management. During my time there, I bumped into a French-born computer programmer who said his wife came up with an idea about selling stuff from around the house online. Everybody laughed about it. I guess Pierre Omidyar got the last laugh. His creation, AuctionWeb, was later renamed eBay and became one of the world's leading e-commerce companies. I bounced around several tech companies in Silicon Valley, including Coraco, Oracle, and Philips Semiconductors. At one point, I tried my hand at law school, taking classes at night. Philips was picking up the tab. Classes were challenging and my head wasn't in it. It was a big commitment and I ended up only going for a year. My passion remained with high tech. After moving to California, I didn't keep close tabs on Donald Trump. I wasn't aware of his casino empire cratering or his massive, massive debt. The book is Trump U by Art Cohen with Dan Good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, reporting live from our studio bunker in war-torn Portland. Happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It's the end of the week. It's Anything Goes Friday. It's and the beginning of the weekend here, more or less. I've got a book signing coming up in a couple of weeks. The Chicago event sold out, so you can just, set that one aside. The LA event, if you want to sign up for that, is over at kpfk.org. And the San Diego event, LA is October 18, San Diego is October 17. And that's at news.knsj.org. So if you want to sign up. So we got a lot to talk about today. The 12 steps to national collapse, a blueprint for how democracies die. Also, apparently, Stephen Miller's dreams since childhood have been about torture and pain. Should someone like this be in power? Also, Europe may be on the verge of a nuclear disaster. And finally, there was an arrest in war-torn Portland, and it was a MAGA influencer for fighting. Apparently, MAGA is struggling with how peaceful Portland's been. I mean, what do you do with people who are like doing a naked bike ride and bringing flowers to ICE? In the second hour of our program, our single guest for the day, Greg Palast, our journalist buddy, is going to drop by. He says his mom would have kicked Pete Hegseth's ass. It's really an amazing story. I'll let Greg tell you about it. And also in the second hour, what was the legal basis for the Venezuela boat strikes? And if there isn't one, how come nobody's being prosecuted? Also, we have a Geeky Science in the second hour. Say what? Almost 30%, almost a third of Americans have had a romantic relationship with an AI. Have you? And in the third hour, no, I won't laugh at you if you tell me you have. I'm curious. And in the third hour of our program, are we surprised that the wealth of the 1% has reached a record $52 trillion as the social floor of America is being ripped up? And as Trump calls Democrats the party of hate and Satan, he and his cult followers are silent about the ultra-MAGA Mormon shooter. Cat got your tongue, guys? We'll talk about that in the third hour. But in our first hour, we're starting out with our over at Hartmann Report, my daily take. It's titled 12 Steps to National Collapse, a blueprint for how democracies die. People are baffled. I mean, why are Trump and his Republican lickspittles so intent on gutting our government, destroying our alliances and reputation around the world, and screwing working class people while transferring over $50 trillion from the morbidly rich, or to the morbidly rich? Historian Kevin Cruz captured the zeitgeist brilliantly, reflecting widespread public bewilderment when he posted over on Blue Sky, quote, "We've had F-ups in the White House before, but never a president who seems so deliberately intent on being an F-up." He said the whole word. It's been said before, but if these people were actual agents of an enemy power seeking to divide, dismantle, and destroy the United States, they wouldn't be doing anything different. End of quote. So let's engage in a simple thought experiment. If you or I were hired by Putin, or an angry group of billionaires who want to end democracy, or a wealthy serial killer, and our orders were to tear our democracy apart, our country apart, and make us vulnerable to foreign takeover, what would we do? What steps would we take? As I mentioned a few days ago, if we follow the dictator's playbook, there actually is a single 12-step formula to make that happen. The first step would be to turn Americans from e pluribus unum, which is out of many one, into hate-filled warring factions. Turn us against each other. Divide us by race, religion, gender, region, education, income, and whether we live in cities or rural areas. In Immanuel Kant's Perpetual Peace, 1795, he described the first three strategies that he said despotic moralists used to rip apart the fabric of a society. They were, and in Latin, face et excusa, act now and make excuses later. Si facisti nega, if you commit a crime, deny it. And divide et imperia, divide and conquer. Thomas Jefferson perhaps inspired Kant when in 1787 he wrote, "Divide et imperia is the reprobated axiom of tyranny." You know, when Hitler claimed that Jews, gypsies, and queer people weren't real Germans, he was invoking that principle. Joe McCarthy tried to divide us by political ideology. David Duke said we should be separated by skin color. Its most recent invocation was just last week when Trump and Hegseth told our nation's generals that most black, Hispanic, and female officers were only in their positions because of their gender or their color. Whiskey Pete was blunt, claiming that Reagan's invocation of America's traditional belief that, as Reagan said, our diversity is our strength, was, as Hegseth said, an insane fallacy. Next, to destroy our country, we'd want to immiserate as many Americans as possible, creating a huge pool of mostly white men who are pissed off because they've been left behind economically and feel locked out of the American dream. That strategy would include several steps. Destroy unions that bind workers together with their employers and raise standards of living. Gut programs that lift people out of poverty and into the middle class, including high-quality universal public education, low-cost college, and inexpensive access to health care. Ship manufacturing overseas to low-wage nations while using incoherent, ever-changing, whim-based tariffs to batter the domestic economy. Build media operations that demonize the other, telling them that blacks, Hispanics, queer people, and women are the cause of their troubles. Ban books that embrace diversity and teachers who use them. Spread hate and conspiracy theories to powerful social media and search engine algorithms that make them seem normal, coarsening our entire culture. Throw people off programs offering health care, student debt repayment, and housing subsidies. And that would do it. I mean, that would tear us apart, right? So then third, we'd want to destroy people's faith in straightforward news. Loudly proclaim that it all has a left-wing bias and can't be trusted, that reporters are elite enemies of the people, and attack the media relentlessly. Fourth, you would shatter people's faith in reality itself. Challenge science and expertise. Flood the zone with conspiracy theories. Convince citizens to stop taking common sense steps to protect themselves and their children. You know, things like vaccinations, precautions against airborne diseases like masks, or measures to slow climate change. Sow confusion until they no longer know who to believe, and then offer yourself as the only source of truth. Yeah, just watch us here on Fox News. Fifth, you would deconstruct international alliances that go back centuries in some cases by alienating our traditional friends and embracing openly hostile foes while tearing up the norms of defense, trade, and commerce. Sixth, you would fracture citizens' faith in their elected officials and the government itself. Legalize the practice of morbidly rich people and giant corporations buying legislation and the loyalty of politicians with cash by claiming that money is speech and corporations are just people, don't you know? Define opposition political parties as radical, dangerous, and outside the mainstream. Seventh, you would turn the military and the police forces of the nation against its own people, making the people terrified of challenging armed, masked men in the streets who are kicking in their doors at midnight. You start with vilified minorities like immigrants, and when they're under control, you turn those forces against anybody who dissents from the new single-party rule and the police state. Eighth, you would demolish faith in the nation's currency by seizing political control of the central bank while villainizing the leadership. Ninth, you run scams to accumulate as much wealth as possible in the hands of dear leader and his close cronies and his family while refusing to raise the minimum wage, specifically to keep people in poverty. 10th, you use the power of government to force institutions, corporations, universities, law firms, into complete submission and even explicit collaboration in the enshittification of the nation. It's a brand new word. It's in Webster's this year. 11th, you would seize control of the legislative and judicial branches so your law-breaking, election rigging, and bribe-taking is never held to account. You openly and brazenly break laws like the Hatch Act that forbids the use of any government agency or property for political or commercial purposes. You force agencies to make illegal partisan statements denigrating the opposition party, and you defy anybody who calls out that naked criminality, sneer and laugh at those who demand that people committing crimes in office should be held accountable. And 12th, you turn the nation's premier law enforcement agencies into tools for punishing political enemies while ignoring the crimes of friends of the regime, thus destroying faith in equality under the law and terrorizing anybody who speaks out. All of these 12 steps have been used by every despot in history, from the ancient Roman Empire through the kings of the Dark Ages to the fascists of early 20th century Europe to today's strongmen, including Orban, Putin, Erdogan, El-Sisi, Maduro, Netanyahu, and Modi. Whether Trump has put America on this road at the insistence or by the payment from Putin, right-wing billionaires, or just his own authoritarian impulses and with strategies he's learned from Orban and Putin, it doesn't have to end with America resembling today's Russia or Hungary. The good news is that multiple countries have elected men to leadership who tried to run through this list and were stopped before they could finish the job. Instead of letting their leaders turn their nations into permanent autocracies, the people rose up and took the power back for themselves and their democracies. Those countries include Ukraine, the Philippines, Brazil, Poland, Zambia, Sri Lanka, Guatemala, Peru, South Korea, Romania, North Macedonia, Slovakia, Gambia, Malawi, Moldova, and South Africa. History shows that any democracy can fall into tyranny if its citizens grow cynical, give up, or look away. The only question that matters now, is whether enough of us will choose to stand up, to act, and to reclaim what generations before us fought and bled to pass along, like the citizens of those countries listed above who have done in the recent past. If they can do it, so can we. Tag, we're it. So what say you? It's Anything Goes weekend here on the Thom Hartmann program. We'll get to your calls and a little more of the news of the day. Apparently Stephen Miller's dreams since childhood have been about torture and pain. I mean, this is bizarre. I'll share that with you in just a minute. And also, Europe may be on the verge of a nuclear disaster. This is a big deal. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll be right back with you. It's talk radio for the rest of us. Stick around. And welcome back. Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to mention a line out of the movie, The Milagro Beanfield War. And it was one of these unemployed people in the movie was complaining about not having a job. And this older, Mexican-American guy says to him, well, then join the army. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm seeing in all these ICE clips quite a few brown and black people are in ICE, and they're doing the dirty work for the big white man at the top, Trump.
Are you sure that's true, Dennis? I mean, I've seen a lot of pictures of these ICE guys, and I mean, you can't see their whole faces, but you can see enough of their faces to know that every single one I've ever seen was white. I mean, I would have noticed if it was a person of color.
I would say probably the majority are white, but I'm seeing quite a few that aren't.
Huh.
And one of the clips I just saw recently was this big black guy tackling ICE guy, and he was black, tackling somebody.
Wow.
If you recall, when Padilla was tackled, the guys who tackled him, there was one white guy. The other guys were either Asian or
Yeah, but they were FBI.
Mexican.
That wasn't ICE. But remember the movie Django, Leo DiCaprio's movie Django? Remember the character Samuel L. Jackson played? The house Negro, I think, is the comfortable way or friendly way of saying it. I mean, is that what's going on
I never
here?
saw that.
Yeah,
I never did see that movie.
It's a brilliant movie.
Yeah, I think I may have seen parts of it, but I just wanted to bring that up because if you're desperate enough because you don't have a job, sure. I mean, aren't they offering like a $50,000 bonus to sign up?
Yep.
Which I wonder if it's even being paid.
I think they pay it at the end of a year.
Yeah, we'll see if they actually get the money. We're talking about Trump,
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that up, and because the Roman Empire, there weren't enough Italians to make up all the legionaries. They had to use auxiliary troops, right? People that they conquered.
That's true.
Yeah. So anyway, the 16 states that are being targeted, I don't know. I would hope those blue state governors would get together and make some kind of a statement that,
Wow, something just...
We want autonomy or something, because, being targeted by your own countrymen.
It's time for a soft secession. I agree. And you know what just hit me was I wonder if ICE wasn't hiring at record rates. I mean, they're trying to hire 1,000 people a day or something. The FBI has 35,000 people in it, and ICE is going to at least double that. If ICE wasn't hiring right now, I wonder if our unemployment numbers would be even worse than. I'm sure they would be even worse than they are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But there's a lot of unemployed men out there. There's a lot of unemployed men that can't get jobs. Yeah. They're ill-educated. I've got to get going, Tom. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, always good talking to you, Dennis. Thanks for the call. That's incredible. I mean, that this is like the job of last resort is go beat up your neighbors, right? It's so pathetic. It's just so friggin' pathetic. All right, we'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Stick around. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds with this amazing clip of Stephen Miller. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out.
They said it could never happen here, but the blueprint's old and it's clear. Divide the people, break their trust, turn dreams to ashes, gold to dust. How to dismantle a republic in 12 steps. History whispers and we forget. Tyrants dance where truth once stood. 12 steps down and gone for good. Shatter the unions, silence the press, sell off the future for the rich to possess. Flood the airwaves with anger and lies, blindfold the people, cover their eyes. How to dismantle a republic in 12 steps. Every stone broken, every vow kept. When money buys the law and the land, freedom slips like dust through our hands. Step one, divide us. Step two, deny the truth. Step three, steal the wealth. Step four, break the youth. Step 12, the law is gone, and the dream of America dies at dawn.
25 minutes past
but the
hour.
Story ain't finished.
Indeed. I'll share the Stephen Miller clip with you on the other side of the break. But these Republican numbers are nuts. The polling is in now. This is It's a new poll that was done by KFF, and with a margin of error of around 3%. And what they found was 59% of MAGA supporters want to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies, as do 92% of Democrats. 78% of all Americans think the tax credit should be extended, including 57% of self-described MAGA supporters. Now, the question is, do they realize that extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies is what the Democrats are fighting for in this shutdown? Number one. And number two, I still don't understand why Democrats aren't pointing out that John Thune and the Republicans in the United States Senate could very easily keep the government open by simply changing the Senate rules on a one-time basis to allow the continuing resolution to pass with 50 votes. They could do this. They don't need to submit to a filibuster. They frequently don't. They frequently blow up filibusters. They do it for Trump judges. They do it for Trump nominees. This is not the Democrats holding the government hostage. I don't know why even the mainstream media is saying that.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Breaking nuclear crisis in Europe, and Stephen Miller is weird. I'll tell you about that on the other side of the break, and pick up your calls here on the Windows Weekend. Stay with us. Thom Hartmann here with Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Unequal Protection, How Corporations Became People and How You Can Fight Back. This is from page 218. The subhead is, If Corporations Are Persons, Why Aren't There Crimes in the Crime Statistics? Every year, the Federal Bureau of Investigation issues a press release on its Uniform Crime Reporting Program, which determines the nation's crime index. It reports crimes by persons, which excludes, strangely enough, corporate persons, even when the corporations have been convicted of felonies. In its entire history, the FBI has never issued a report on crimes by corporate persons, although its reports on crimes by human persons are well-researched and well-publicized. The upshot of this is that when you ask people how most money and property are stolen, or how most people are killed, they think of burglars and muggers and bank robbers and crimes of passion. They think of human persons. The reality, though, is that more money and property are stolen by or lost to corporate criminals than to human criminals. Russell Mokaber's corporate crime reporter noted that in 1998, when the FBI estimated robberies and burglaries at almost $4 billion, the cost of corporate crimes was in the hundreds of billions, as it is every year. These include security scams that ran around $15 billion that year, car repair fraud that hit around $40 billion that year, insurance swindles and corporate fraud found on your health insurance, HMO, and hospital billings that runs between $100 and $400 billion a year, 100 times greater than all the burglaries in the country combined. Then there are the occasional really big crimes like Neil Bush's savings and loans scandal that then Attorney General Dick Thornburgh called the biggest white-collar swindle in history, or the actions of banksters and defense contractors that get no investigations whatsoever from either the Bush or the Obama administrations. More people die as a result of corporate activity than because of the actions of deranged killers or overwrought spouses. According to the corporate crime reporter, the FBI reported that 1998 saw about 19,000 Americans murdered at the hands of other people. But that same year, 56,000 people died from work-related diseases like black lung and asbestosis that went unreported by the FBI. And many times that number died from the silent violence of pollution, contaminated food, hazardous consumer products, and hospital malpractice. Much of the human death caused by corporate activity has arguable benefits. For example, the many cancers caused by compounds associated with plastics or pesticides. But the cost of these deaths isn't factored into the unit cost of the products. So there's no financial incentive for industry to develop toxin-free or toxin-reduced alternatives, or to use the more expensive but less toxic alternatives that already exist. This is a process known as internalizing profits and externalizing costs. The corporation profits from the toxins, and the public pays for the cancers, both in healthcare costs and lost productivity from sick and dying workers.
It's been a standard operating procedure for centuries and was pushed back against for only a few decades in the 1960s and 70s with the consumer movement that came out of the publication of Rachel Carlson's book Silent Spring and Ralph Nader's book Unsafe at Any Speed. Since the Reagan administration, however, dumping externalities on the public has become a common and accepted practice across the business spectrum. One of the easiest ways to do it is to simply move the toxin producing or toxin using factory or process to a country with lax environmental and labor laws like China or Vietnam, so that not only are labor costs lowered, but more importantly, the cost of dealing with externalities like workman's compensation from injury and exposure and toxic emissions and death in the workplace, so that all those costs drop to zero or close to it. And then there are the big mistakes. In 1998, one of America's largest meatpacking companies replaced a refrigerating unit on one of its processing lines. Shortly thereafter, the detectors it had in place on the line to look for the deadly cold-loving bacteria like Listeria monocytogenes started to react, indicating high levels of bacterial contamination. The company's response was immediate. Carolyn Smith DeWall of the Center for Science and the Public Interest told reporters Russell Mochaber and Robert Weissman, quote, "Then their studies started coming up positive, so they stopped testing. This company's Fourth Amendment right to privacy blocked surprise inspections by the government." They're a person, right? The detectors were apparently turned off for a full month before the Centers for Disease Control, frantically trying to find the source of the bacteria that was killing people, mostly children, all over the United States, used DNA fingerprinting to track the bacteria that was causing the nationwide outbreak of Listeria back to the plant, provoking a nationwide recall of millions of pounds of the product. But during that month, hundreds of people consuming this company's products were sickened by Listeria, and 21 humans died from it. The U.S. Attorney's Office, according to Mochaber and Weissman, said, quote, "There was insufficient evidence to bring a felony charge against the company. Instead, the company paid a $200,000 fine and issued an unprecedented joint press release with the Bush administration's USDA that managed to say that the company had paid the fine without ever mentioning the brand name of the product that had contaminated and caused the deaths." This is truly amazing. I mean, corporate crime costs us more and kills more people, and we don't even talk about it. It's amazing. Anyhow, the book is Unequal Protection: How Corporations Became People and How You Can Fight Back.
Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Trump's on Truth Social foaming at the keys, saying protect Elon Musk and all his EVs. He called the J6 boys patriots divine, but Kia Cybertruck and you're doing hard time. They're terrorists, y'all.
Welcome back. 34 minutes past the hour. Breaking nuclear crisis in Europe. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is the largest one in all of Europe. It's in Ukraine. It has been seized by the Russians. It was seized by the Russians last year, and they've cut power to it. And so it's running on diesel generators right now, but if they run out of diesel fuel, and that's getting lower, if they run out of the cooling water, it's at 13.4 meters, the cooling pool right now. If it hits 12 meters, the cooling will fail. If that happens, this plant's going to melt down like Chernobyl did back in, what year was that, 78, I think? Or no, it was 86. I know because I moved to Germany that year. I flew into Frankfurt as the meltdown was happening. It was wild. But anyhow, the International Atomic Energy Agency is warning about this. It looks like Russia is trying to play high stakes. They've also cut off power to Chernobyl, which is still being run to cool it down. Right? I mean, this is the problem with nuclear power. So we got these two plants, and if these things melt down, it'll be just a screaming, flaming disaster. So keep an eye on this one. This is going to be wild stuff. It's going to be absolutely wild stuff. Meanwhile, the year is 2003. And Stephen Miller is 17 years old. He's in high school. He takes the bus to school. And he's in the back of a school bus talking about how torture is a celebration of human life and dignity. Seriously, this clip, which I'm pretty sure is not AI, just popped up on the internet yesterday. And it's going viral. This is amazing. Check this out.
To the issue of the Iraqi civilians. I think that as many of them should survive as possible, because the goal of any military conflict is to kill as few people as possible. But as for Saddam Hussein and his henchmen, I think the ideal solution would be to cut off their fingers. I don't think it's necessary to kill them entirely. We're not a barbaric people. We respect life. Therefore, torture is the way to go, because tortured people can live. Torture is a celebration of life and human dignity. And we need to remember that as we enter these very dark and dangerous times in the next century. And I only hope that many of my peers and people who will be leading this country will appreciate the value and respect that torture shows towards other cultures. To the issue.
And that's exactly what he's trying to do right now to brown people in the United States, black and brown people. I mean, look at this raid in Chicago. This was so clearly illegal and unconstitutional. The Fourth Amendment says that you may only detain somebody. You shall have a right to. Actually, let me just read the actual text of the Fourth Amendment, because it's quite specific. It's unambiguous, as the old saying goes. Hang on just a second here. Amendment 4, the right of the people. Now, keep in mind, the ICE showed up and they went door to door in this apartment building, kicking in doors, throwing things off the wall, tearing apart people's bedrooms and living rooms, smashing their furniture, dragging people out, including children, some of whom were naked, dragging them out into the cold street and throwing them in the back of a U-Haul truck with zip ties on them. Okay, so let me read the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly or specifically describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. This was deeply, and this raid in Chicago, deeply and profoundly illegal. And as I said yesterday, had this apartment building not been full of black and brown people, but instead been full of white middle-class people, there would have been hell to pay, which is another sad commentary on what's going on in America right now. But Stephen Miller's childhood call for torture is, they just, day before yesterday, they started separating families intentionally, tearing children apart from their families, immigrant children apart from their immigrant parents, and putting them into the foster care system. This was apparently Stephen Miller's idea back when they did it in the first administration. These people should not be in power. I mean, we're watching America just go down the tubes. Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Stephen Miller is torturing migrants in those detainment centers, and we pay. He makes a fortune off of the taxpayers. And Tom, I'm just so proud of you and Louise. I am. You are so strong. You are getting us through this. And if there's ever a time you two need to take off, I know that you will.
Well, we are taking 2 weeks off in November, so just heads up.
There you go.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a vacation.
Yeah, you deserve it so much. Okay, so the deranged orange draft dodger, President Bone Spurs, he's addicted to violence, and so is Hog's Breath, too. So the orange draft dodger is recorded now saying he wants the military to fight their own American citizens.
Yeah.
Tom, that is treason. It's treason. And the Democrats have the proof. He did it on camera in front of everyone. And he also he wants them fighting on the street, and then he said it will be hard because they don't have uniforms to identify them. And ICE is already pointing guns at protesters and firing pepper balls and firing rubber bullets and tear gas on innocent protesters. But they shove them on the concrete ground, and they're going to kill somebody. They're going to have a head injury. They're going to have a hemorrhage.
They already have killed somebody. They killed a guy a couple days ago. They shot him dead.
Yeah. When our military starts taking over our streets, though, it's going to be so much worse. And there's a couple things. I have been calling all the senators that are attorneys, and I'm saying now is the time. Trump needs to be convicted of treason already, turning the military against their own American citizens. And I mean, Republicans, there will be some that will come along. They have to. And everyone needs to flood the zone and call. It's time for Trump to go down for treason. And I love that you know all the facts and you've told us what will happen if that would be a miracle. And I still pray for that miracle.
Yeah.
And but also I have an idea, and I don't know. I'm second guessing myself. But you know how he said he can't tell who's who? I think people need to wear, migrants especially, wear the red shirts, wear red hats. The worst part is, who wants to wear a MAGA hat? But if it can save your life, possibly. Wear long sleeves, wear the white plastic gloves. And I told my husband this, and he's like, oh, brother, blonde wigs or dye your hair blonde.
Wear a paperclip.
Yes.
I was doing that the other day. I forgot. I've got to start doing it again.
I wear an impeach Trump button. I wear it all the time.
Yeah,
I still have it from long ago. I have it. But we have to hide our migrants like back in when Nazis were. It's just insane that our world is this way right now. And we've got to be strong and tell the Democratic attorneys it's time, and they can do it. I believe they can convict him, and I believe they can bring along Republicans. I do. I honestly do.
Yeah, I do too. Jessica, I think that at some point, I mean, I keep waiting for Republicans to wake up. And, you know, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul the other day, you know, taking Jimmy Kimmel's side was, you know, a small crack, right? Just a little tiny hairline fracture. But
and Macy, I'm proud of Macy. He wants, you know, there are some that are coming forward, and they actually want the Epstein files out too.
Oh yeah. Thomas Massey, yeah, absolutely, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, for God's sake. Yep. Jessica, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. It's always so nice to hear from you. In fact, actually, we're hitting a break right here. Jessica, thank you. We'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. What a moment. It's astonishing. We're only 10 months into this administration. Not even. I mean, you know, we're 2 weeks short of 10 months. And look at how far we've gone down this road toward the absolute dismantling of our democracy. It's just breathtaking.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It'll be interesting to see how long they can sustain this shutdown. I predict that the air traffic controllers will bring them to their knees. We'll see. Tyrone in Harlem, New York. Hey, Tyrone, welcome to the program. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. My question is, how is it they can still try to twist this?
Hey, Tyrone, I'm having a hard time hearing you on speaker like that. Can you put your mouth next to the microphone, please? You can still keep your phone on speaker. Just hold it right up to your mouth, you know?
Can you hear me now?
It's about the same.
Is it still about the same?
Yeah, it still sounds like you're in an echo chamber.
Okay, how about now?
That's perfect. What's up, Tyrone?
All right. Now, how is it they can blame the Democratic Party about the shutdown when they already had plenty, and like you said, they had plenty of opportunities to turn this into something that's not what it is right now. And the fact that they're saying, "Oh, you should make a deal with Donald Trump," the same Donald Trump that took funds and used it the way he wanted to use it, and they say that this Russell Volts character is going to do more damage to our system than he would have been able to do if the country wasn't shut down. He was already doing what the hell he wanted.
Look at, they've gutted Social Security. They've killed the EPA. They've shut down the Department of Education. They closed down USAID, and literally millions of people mostly in Africa now are facing starvation, famine, or death by AIDS or malaria. I mean, it's insane, Tyrone, what they've already done.
It's insane. And they're saying, "Oh, he's going to do worse." Okay, let him do worse. Let him continue to run this country down into the ground, because sometimes a necessary evil is something that'll make us see that we're going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Donald Trump is a necessary evil that people probably need to see and understand that they're not everybody that smile in your face don't mean you no good.
Yeah.
And this dude has been running rampant throughout our whole system for eons. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, well, it didn't affect me personally, but you don't realize that if it affects you any kind of way, it affects you personally.
Yeah.
Because these people think that, oh, well, I'm still able to go to work. Yeah, but now you're spending half your money on rent, half your income on food, half your income on, you're paying so much money into you just working to just pay bills.
Yeah.
You can't save anything. You end up homeless. These people, I hope that the American people realize that this man is running us down the road of self-destruction.
Well,
and
so
if you don't stand up against it. Go ahead, sir.
Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
If we don't stand up against this wannabe dictator, we're going to end up in the worst way that we can ever imagine it, and continue to have to dig out of this hole on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Every time we get one step forward, we go 2 steps back. We need to learn how to move forward completely.
Yeah.
Instead of giving up everything.
I agree. And the big challenge we have, Tyrone, is that you've got this massive media empire that is owned and run by billionaires. The Fox empire, the other 2 television networks on the right. All these bloggers and whatnot who are being paid big money by right-wing billionaires, 1,500 right-wing radio stations, et cetera, who are all promoting the idea that this is all the fault of Democrats, that the Democrats are and that the reason that all you white people out there who are unemployed is because black people, brown people, and women have taken your jobs and all this kind of BS. That's the challenge that this country faces right now is right-wing media. Tyrone, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, good talking to you. 49 minutes past the hour. Back with you in 60 seconds. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Recently, I did an op-ed and a little rant here about what happens when you raise the top income tax rate on morbidly rich people to 90%, and how, that helps reduce income inequality and funds the government, all kinds of good, positive things. What about corporate taxes? We really need to go back to the 50% top corporate income tax rate that we had under Dwight Eisenhower, for example. The reason why is not on the assumption that we're going to collect all that money, but what it does is it causes corporations to change their behavior, to do things to try to get tax deductions so they don't have to pay that in taxes. And what are the main things they do? They develop new products. They do research and development. They become more competitive. They open up new stores. They pay their employees better. They offer better benefits. All of these things are 100% tax deductible and thus lower their corporate income taxes and help out America. You can read all about it over at HartmannReport.com.
They banned the laughter in 39. Apples drew the hard red line. 5 comedians silence broke because dictators can't take a joke. Dictators can't take a joke. The truth and laughter makes their power choke.
Welcome back, 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Omar in Herndon, Virginia. Hey, Omar, what's up?
Tom, thanks so much for taking my call. Just for the record, no feelings or anything with the AI, so that study did not include me.
Okay. So you're not getting it on with ChatGPT, huh? It's reassuring, Omar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No feeling there. But, Tom, really quick, though, before I get to my main point, what happened to Susie Wiles? Is she still chief of staff? Did she get pushed aside by Miller and them? I mean, what happened? She's not – we don't hear that much about her.
What happened with who?
Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles.
Oh, Susie Wiles. Oh, she's competent and quiet. She's in the background. She keeps everything moving. She keeps, but she's all in on all this stuff, obviously.
Wow, I thought she was the reasonable one who was going to be basically keep everybody in check, but apparently, because that meeting.
She's like the guy in 1944 who was making sure that the train cars going to Auschwitz were running on time.
Wow, that is terrible. But is it fair to say that Stephen Miller pretty much in charge of the White House?
I think so.
The Trump right-hand man?
I think he's running their policy. I could be wrong, but it sure looks like it to me.
Okay, good. But what I wanted to say, Tom, in terms of the government shutdown, and I'll be honest with you, we do have a problem with messaging, we Democrat, because when the race in Virginia started for the governor, Spanberger was leading by 17 points. Right now, it dropped down to basically 7 points, and I'm really concerned about the candidate, the Republican candidate is going to win. Yeah. So messaging is troubling. So my question to you, does this government shutdown, how can we weather the storm? I mean, how can we get our point across without hurrying? Because I'm concerned that the Republicans are winning this messaging when it comes to the shutdown.
Yeah, we're up against a billionaire-owned right-wing media machine. And we're also up against the fact that the 5 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court, 5 corrupt, bought-off Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court, have legalized basically unlimited money being poured into political campaigns, and so it's going to be real. It's going to be real tough, Omar. The airwaves in Virginia and Pennsylvania. You've got the Supreme Court case coming up, or election. Three members of the Supreme Court, and if that flips Republican, they will be able to control the gerrymandering in Pennsylvania and flip Pennsylvania red. They're pouring millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars when all is said and done, into these races. And there's one other race, I think it's New Jersey. New Jersey, Spanberger. And so the only way that we can combat this, we don't have the money, we don't have the billionaires, and we don't own the media. So the one thing that we do have is our own voices. We can individually speak out, and we can amplify our voices to the extent that the algorithms will allow it, through social media and things like that. So we just need to get out there and be speaking up loudly.
And absolutely. And I think every morning, and to borrow a statement from you about Mel Gardner and Obama, every morning Chuck Schumer should hold a press conference and Hakeem Jeffries should hold a conference in front of Capitol and say the reason why you didn't go to work today is because of the Republicans.
Yeah,
every morning they should do that.
They're doing that. It's just that they're not getting much coverage. But I'm with you. Omar, thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Yeah. Roger in Seattle. Hey, Roger, what's on your mind today?
Music-wise, I was wondering how you might connect Babes in Arms with My Fair Lady and the Orange Man.
I'm
not for Syracuse, the guy in Washington, not New York.
I remember My Fair Lady. I don't know the other two songs.
Well, Poor Johnny One Note is from Babes in Arms, and The Rain in Spain is from My Fair Lady.
Right.
So with all this nuclear ignorance, maybe Putin thinks, we'll just burn up a little of Ukraine. Well, the rains do fall in Russia, too, that come from clouds in Ukraine.
Well, I think that's the one thing that has restrained him, is that the prevailing winds are out of the east, they blow towards the west, and to the west of Ukraine is Russia. And so, you know, if Chernobyl and Zaporizhzhia melt down, if either one of them melts down, it's going to be not just a disaster for Ukraine and probably the rest of Europe, depending on how the weather goes. Say what?
But the Johnny One Note is Stephen Miller and Trump and all of the Republicans. They're doing what I think the cliche is, keep quiet, because once you open your mouth, everybody knows you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So we're seeing them learning statesmanship, you know, internationally, how to be a statesman, on-the-job training, and everybody sees it in public.
Who's the them that we're watching getting trained in public?
All of the Republicans, all of
you're
the
talking
Orange
about
Man's
Rubio and all
crew.
those guys? Yeah.
They're teaching themselves how to be Department of State.
I had actually had high hopes for Marco Rubio. You know, there was a time when he seemed like a rational guy.
Because he sweats a lot?
Yeah, but he's just sold out. I mean, he apparently has no principles. I thought he was going to be a John McCain type character who actually had a set of beliefs that he would hold to, you know? I mean, his parents were immigrants.
Unfortunately, he is going for the short term the way this administration does the shock and awe.
Yeah.
They went after the defense. They didn't go after defense or security agencies first. They went after the Health and Human Services and the HUDs.
Well, they went after the courts and
DOD
the
security know what happens when their top guy gets killed.
Yeah, Roger, I gotta run. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Homewreckers by Aaron Glantz, a Pulitzer Prize finalist. The subtitle is How a Gang of Wall Street Kingpins, Hedge Fund Magnates, Crooked Banks, and Venture Capitalists suckered millions out of their homes and demolished the American dream. It's quite a subtitle. This is from chapter 21, titled Triumph of the Homewreckers. Donald Trump took the oath of office on a chilly Friday morning, delivering an inaugural address that promised an end to the corruption and impotence that had widened America's historic wealth gap. He understood that his victory had been propelled by harnessing the public's rage and envy at having been left behind in the economic recovery,
and that he promised that he would not forget it. Evoking FDR's famous Forgotten Man speech from 1932 that promised to prioritize the needs of, quote, the man at the bottom of the economic pyramid, Trump declared, quote, the forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Politicians had prospered, he said, but jobs had evaporated, factories closed. Quote, the establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little chance to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. This all changes, starting right here and right now, Trump proclaimed, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. This is your day. This is your celebration. End of quote. The moment, however, belonged not to the great mass of struggling Americans, but to the new president's most ardent supporters, flamboyant businessmen who profited off the pain of the housing bust and were now poised to steer the ship of state for at least the next 4 years. As Trump reached out his hand and swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, his close friend and inaugural committee chair, Tom Barack, stood behind him, smiling in a blue scarf and black overcoat. Afterward, Barack and Trump embraced at the U.S. Capitol's inaugural platform. The homewreckers had arrived. Barack didn't take an official position in the Trump administration, reportedly turning down an offer to be White House Chief of Staff, Treasury Secretary, or Ambassador to Mexico. Roger Stone told me he could have had any position he wanted, but working for the government would have meant making a lot less money. I don't think he has the belly for public service, Stone observed. Other homewreckers had no such qualms. If they changed the rules of the game now, they could make more money later. Steve Mnuchin, by now dubbed the foreclosure king by his critics, was confirmed as Treasury Secretary. His top deputy at One West, the bank, Joseph Otting, became the nation's chief bank regulator, the comptroller of the currency. Wilbur Ross, the bankruptcy tycoon who bought Florida's Bank United, became the Commerce Secretary, charged with everything from negotiating trade deals to overseeing the U.S. Census. Steve Schwarzman, the chairman of Blackstone, became chair of the White House's Strategic and Policy Forum, a group of business leaders who were to meet regularly with Trump. Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase was named vice chair. Though the group disbanded over the summer after Trump's statement that bigotry and violence on many sides were responsible for a white nationalist killing a counter-protester in Charlottesville, Virginia, Schwarzman, along with Barack, is said to be among a small group of outsiders, including Sean Hannity, who are put directly through to the president rather than being routed through the normal communications channels. Hannity reportedly chats with Trump nightly. Schwarzman has flown on Air Force One. On February 12, 2017, less than a month into Trump's presidency, while the commander-in-chief was dining with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan at his Mar-a-Lago golf club, Schwarzman threw a massive 70th birthday bash at his Four Winds estate, barely a mile and a half away. This time, neither Donald nor Melania Trump could make it, but daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner did, along with Mnuchin, Ross, and a who's who of high finance and culture, from Henry Kravis, co-founder of the hostile takeover firm Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, to the fashion designer Donatella Versace. The party featured live camels, trapeze artists, fireworks, and a gondolier. Schwarzman's tennis courts were covered with Asian-themed staging. The man who'd hired Patti LaBelle to sing Happy Birthday for his 60th was serenaded by Gwen Stefani on his 70th. After Happy Birthday, the peroxide pop star took a, quote, a quick twirl with the birthday boy around a dance floor constructed inside a two-story tent where acrobats shimmied and jumped, the New York Times reported. Unlike a decade before, when Schwarzman's glorious pre-bust bash sparked condemnation from sources as conservative as the Wall Street Journal, this time the festivities sparked very little blowback. In her story, Bloomberg reporter Amanda Gordon reveled in the comparison with Schwarzman's 60th. There were some differences, though, she wrote. Remember that beautiful fur coat on Melania Trump? It was New York in February on a weeknight. This time, no bundling required, with many folks golfing and swimming all day before a balmy night and fireworks alongside a full moon. Howard Marks, the co-chairman of Oak Tree Capital, a vulture firm that had bought and flipped 3,000 foreclosures, told Gordon, quote, The world is an uncertain place. A lot of people are unhappy with a lot of other people. There are a lot of things that people are upset about. So it's nice to have an evening where everybody's happy, harmonious, and upbeat. End quote. There was a lot of celebrating to be had. In June, the gang got together for the marriage of Steve Mnuchin and his third wife, actress Louise Linton, almost 2 decades younger.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, as you know, Greg Palast and I both have Substack newsletters, and his Substack newsletter is, well, you just go over to Substack and plug in his name, you can find it. He had a fascinating post about his mother a day or 3 ago that I thought was just an amazing story. I had no idea. And so I wanted to get him back on it. The investigative reporter for The Guardian, The New York Times, the author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, his latest film, Vigilante Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitmen, produced by Martin Sheen, gregpalast.com, of course, his website. Greg, welcome back to the program. It's always so nice to have you with us. Tell us about your mom.
I said, excuse me. I said, Pig Hegseth. Excuse me. That was not deliberate, by the way. My mother, he said, we need the male warrior spirit. When you want to meet warrior spirit, meet my mom. She was recognized by Bill Clinton at a special ceremony as the very first woman to join the U.S. Coast Guard. It was immediately after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Mom was a warrior. Yeah, it's kind of true that she spent most of the war as a model of Chanel uniforms and as a chorus girl in the USO. But nevertheless, she was a warrior through her whole life. She was a typical 60s mom with the 50s mom, with the plastic around all the furniture, and worked in the school cafeteria in the hairnet. Later, in her 50s, became a teacher and a union organizer, organized the first union for child care workers in government. And always a warrior, as was my father. And how dare you say male warrior spirit? You ain't heard my mom. If she would have been around, she passed away at 97. You can see her on on my Substack. You'll see her. I'm nonpartisan, Tom. I want to mention that, but you'll see my mom the 2 days before she passed away, smiling in her impeach Trump T-shirt, and. She was always a warrior, including a warrior against the war in Vietnam. My father served in the Philippines and threw away his medals in protest.
Wow.
Because he was, my parents were actually super patriots. They had military burials, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And, but to them, Trump was stomach churning. But here's the problem. Pete Hegseth calls in all the top brass from around the world traveling. You got guys leaving aircraft carriers to take planes to this dog and pony show. Mm-hmm. First of all, it's dangerous. You got all the brass in one place.
Yeah, it's like a target.
It was ridiculous. You never do that. And what for? So he can prance around the stage telling generals, it's a bad look to be, I don't want to see fat generals and admirals in the Pentagon. It's a bad look. Well, have you looked at your commander in chief? The guy in the red tie next to you. Ask him to do a couple push-ups, huh? Ask him if he can meet the female standard for the military. And then, of course, he went after beardos, like J.D. Vance, the next commander. He thinks will be his next commander in chief. But that's the least of it. He took these generals home to make a point that would have scared my parents, who were civil libertarians to the core and patriots. And which is that he says the war is in our inner cities. They're getting the point. The war isn't against Putin or Xi, because after all, Putin's still glowing from his Lewinsky that he got in Alaska. Xi's talking about, boasting about his prep for invading Taiwan. So they don't consider him a three-toed. They don't consider him a paper tiger. They consider Trump a paper three-toed sloth. And we are being laughed at by our enemies. This is serious stuff. Yeah. And even worse, you're telling generals that the real war is here against what he called, quote, this is a quote, the enemy within. Americans aren't the enemy, but that's what they were announcing to these guys. Your battle will be here in America. they are saying, you basically, what are they really saying? They're saying, get ready for the Civil War.
Yeah.
You better be on our side, or, and Trump didn't get his applause when he walked in that he expects. And so
he started begging for it.
Begging for applause. Instead, he got laughter, nervous laughter. I mean, after all, it's a command from their commander in chief.
Yeah.
But why were they sent there? To say shave and do some push-ups? It was to tell these generals, your next war is in these borders.
Yeah.
That's what's dangerous.
Now, Greg, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, and they were being lectured by, a drunk, National Guard guy.
He's drunk texting. You got a secretary of war, big macho man, who's drunk texting his wife with secret plans for invasions.
Yeah.
That's what could happen. So he talked about fat. He talked about beards. He didn't talk about the bottle, did he?
No, he didn't.
No,
surprise.
So this is dangerous. Really, I know that my mother and father would have been. They were horrified by the first by Trump won. This would be scarier.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, David Korten, right? The guy who wrote When Corporations Rule the World.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
the big bestseller from about 15 years ago. David has a little newsletter, and it's not. I shouldn't say little. He's got a very good newsletter, and he and his wife Fran are just extraordinary people. She started Yes Magazine, and I mean they've been activists their whole lives. Used to work all around the world on behalf of the U.S. government, the World Bank. He knows what's going on. And he offered a really insightful take on this that I hope and pray he's right. Basically, what he was arguing was, and this is a couple days ago in his newsletter, was that before this meeting, these generals were all scattered all over the world. They talked to each other occasionally, but when they did, it was on secure comms, and they never talked about things like politics or what the hell is going on with Hegseth and Trump and that kind. They just couldn't have those kinds of conversations, And by bringing them all together in one, and so if they were to receive an illegal order, most of them had no idea whether their peers would resist it too. I mean, it was like they were it was divide and conquer. They were scattered. They were divided. By bringing them all together in one room and showing them the pure, naked insanity of these two men, Trump, rambling about, the enemy within, and Hegseth going on like he's a dry drunk. Now it's far less likely, according to David Korten, that when the illegal order to turn your troops with live ammunition and automatic weapons on the people of the United States, when that illegal order comes down, it's far less likely it'll get followed. Because what they did was they all sat around together and realized that all of them are of the same mind. I mean, nobody stood up and clapped or cheered, right? They're all of the same mind. This is wrong. What say you?
Well, actually, Korten's an insider, he knows, but I've been listening to generals who are across the water from RUSI, the Royal United Services Organization, which is like their big Pentagon think tank of Britain. And they've been talking to U.S. generals, and those guys are scared. Remember, General Milley, who was head of our Joint Chiefs of Staff, was not only fired, humiliated, his pictures taken off the wall, but they even took away his security detail. That was a warning. And why? Because he was contacting other generals, the Defense Department at the time, when you had a half-sane chief of staff in Trump 1, and they kept talking about landing the plane safely, making sure that Trump doesn't start a nuclear war to stay in power. Mm-hmm. That's why he was removed, trying to save literally our country from being incinerated because a megalomaniac was not ready to leave office. And, so Milley was able to keep it together. But now I agree with Korten. According, again, from the RUSI people who are inside on this, the generals are not going to go along with a whack order. They are not going to attack the United States. And, suddenly the military and the FBI are our friends, which is, we never used to think of that 50 years ago.
No.
But now we have to understand that this is literally what you're staring at. Those guys staring at these nutcases in disbelief. They don't like it. And they didn't like, you think the military people like the fact that Linda Fagan was was fired as commandant of the Coast Guard, my mother's old unit, or that they fired General Brown, 4-star general, as head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff because he was, he's brown. In the military, this is not sailing.
Yeah. Yeah. I from your lips to God's ears, Greg, I really hope that this because we've lost the Republicans right across the board, and thus lost the House and the Senate. We've lost the 6 bought off and corrupted politicians on the Supreme Court, Republicans on the Supreme Court. And we've lost a lot of our states. You've got state people like Greg Abbott, and whatnot, just, embracing fascism across the country. It'd be an amazing thing if the military ends up being, our last bastion. Last question here. We've got some really consequential elections coming up. 3 Supreme Court justices in Pennsylvania, a Senate election in New Jersey, and a governor's election in Virginia next month. You're the election guy. You've been, crunching the numbers and writing the books and making the movies and everything else. What are they up to?
Well, one of the big things that you have to worry about in Virginia and not in New Jersey, and I guess you were saying Maryland, is that we have a massive, massive new purge of voters. And the states who aren't voluntarily purging voters from the voter rolls, I know that I can't remember the number in Virginia I always stick with Georgia, 440,000 people getting the chop from the voter rolls. Now, again, I got the purge list from Virginia many years ago and tested their list of people who were illegal voters to be removed. And at that time, it was over 100,000. And I found that the list, first of all, of double voters, there was 0 of 100,000 people tagged. And then later, when I did a study on people who supposedly moved for the ACLU, 63%. I know I'm throwing numbers at you,
right?
But understand the people being removed, not one was being removed for a legal reason. Not a single one. That was 100,000. And you wonder why Virginia flipped?
It was because of the purges.
It's a fight.
Yeah.
Because of the purges.
And they're doing it now.
We are massive. And this is the off year when people aren't looking. That's when they do the big purges. We just, in 2023, a year before the 2024 election, we had about 300-some thousand people removed from the voter rolls of Pennsylvania without any conclusive evidence that these are wrongful voters.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Sorry, we hit the hard break there, Greg. Greg
no
Palast,
problem.
the great Greg Palast, gregpalast.com. Thank you, Greg. And welcome back, Susan in Caldwell, Idaho. Hey, Susan, what's up?
Hey, just want to talk about the government shutdown at the beginning of the federal fiscal year and the effect it's going to have on mothers and children in our country. I was listening to NPR the last couple of days, and some representatives from the different states have reported that the WIC program, the Women, Infant, Children Nutrition Program, is only got, 1 to 2 weeks of funding in it. And the moms all have their coupons, but if there's no money behind the coupon, they're not getting nothing. Also, in this is the baby formula program. Do your listeners realize that a canister of Similac or Infamil or any other brand is like $40 at any big box or supermarket? $40.
Wow.
It basically gives...
Has it always been that expensive, or is this new?
No, it's been that way for a few years. It's just incredibly expensive. It's obscene when you think about it, it's even based on cows.
Well, if it encourages breastfeeding, that's a good thing, but I realize some women can't. So
most women cannot do it beyond a couple of weeks, either because they have to go back to work and they can't pump, or they just nature takes over and they stop producing. This is why we have the formula. Anyway, if these women can't get their formula, I mean, it's issued by the actual health agencies that administer WIC in every jurisdiction. But if they don't have any money, they're not going to have formula. And at $40 a pop, and if you look at how you mix it up, you maybe get 40 to 50 4-ounce bottles per canister, and a few-month-old baby's going to blow through 30 ounces of formula a day, in 24 hours. That's what they drink, because they're not able to take on their solid foods till they're at least 6 months old.
Right.
I just say, if you're interested, check with your local food bank agency. Do they need any funds to help supplement this?
Yeah.
Because this is horrible, when you think about it. Half of our mothers, 40% of our mothers in America deliver with Medicaid funds, and there are almost 7 million infants and children who are receiving their nutrition through the WIC program.
Yeah.
We only have 22 million infants and children at a time in our country right now. That's like a quarter of our babies and toddlers.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned. It seems to be brushed under. Nobody's thinking about it. But I just want to think, if you want to have a future, you need children.
Yeah, and you need well-nourished children so that their brains develop and their bodies develop properly. Louise and I support a local charity that a local homeless shelter. We support a local charity that it's called Bradley Angle, that is a support place for gay youth, for queer youth who mostly have been kicked out of their families' homes. But I'm going to have to look at the local homeless shelter situation here in Portland, or the local food bank situation here in Portland. That's a good suggestion, Susan, because I think that these cuts, they cut $1.5 trillion, not just from healthcare, but also from all these other support programs, what Trump calls Democrat programs. It's crazy. Susan, thank you. Thank you for the call. Thanks for pointing all that out and for having the facts and figures. It's 22 and a half minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds and a little more of the news of the day. Stick around. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. They wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. They're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, their ultimate talking document, does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. They have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the First, Fourth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out.
Orwell's warning, straight from the page. They're twisting the future, rewriting the age. History's burning, truth's under ban. Welcome, my friends, to MAGA stun. Loyalty oaths, the past erased. Whitewashed glory in freedom's place. You can feel the walls closing in, but the fight for tomorrow must begin. Welcome to MAGA stun, where the flag's just a mask for the master plan. They call it patriot, they call it free, but it's chains and silence for you and me. Welcome to MAGA stand.
It's the hour, so This is an interesting story here in Portland. Early Friday morning, a MAGA influencer, I'm not going to give out his name, he's one of these guys who craves publicity. He was in Maui when the big fires were going down and reporting for Steve Bannon, and he got chased out by the local police. He was accused of using up resources while the community was reeling. So he comes to Portland, and he tries to pick a fight with the people who are the peaceful people who have brought flowers to the ICE building. And so the police arrested him. And as he was being arrested, Portland police officers on bikes, by the way, are bicycle officers, arrested this guy. And as they're arresting him, the people who had brought the flowers to the ICE building were yelling, "You dumb bleep," and "What an effing loser." He was released without bond yesterday after being arrested on suspicion of second-degree disorderly conduct. But apparently the MAGA people, I mean, they just desperately want to fight. This is so much like the old brown shirts, Hey, we're the tough guys. We're the street fighters. We're gonna kick your ass. You better watch out. Yeah, right. Go someplace else. Find some other country to harass. Like that deputy sheriff from Florida who literally moved to Russia. He got asylum in Russia. His name is Dugan or whatever. And he's now doing Russian propaganda. MAGA people, if you don't like it here, Putin would love to have you. And as long as you kiss his ass, as long as you speak well of him, he will treat you nicely. I mean, he might even subsidize you. Incredible. U.S. is in armed conflict with Venezuela now, really? And an incredible Geeky Science. Stick around, I'll get those and I'll pick up your calls. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where smart people get their news. We'll be right back with you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Homewreckers by Aaron Glantz, a Pulitzer Prize finalist. The subtitle is How a Gang of Wall Street Kingpins, Hedge Fund Magnates, Crooked Banks, and Venture Capitalists suckered millions out of their homes and demolished the American dream. It's quite a subtitle. This is from chapter 21, titled Triumph of the Homewreckers. Donald Trump took the oath of office on a chilly Friday morning, delivering an inaugural address that promised an end to the corruption and impotence that had widened America's historic wealth gap. He understood that his victory had been propelled by harnessing the public's rage and envy at having been left behind in the economic recovery, and that he promised that he would not forget it. Evoking FDR's famous Forgotten Man speech from 1932 that promised to prioritize the needs of, quote, the man at the bottom of the economic pyramid, Trump declared, quote, the forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Politicians had prospered, he said, but jobs had evaporated, factories closed. Quote, the establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little chance to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. This all changes, starting right here and right now, Trump proclaimed, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. This is your day. This is your celebration. End of quote. The moment, however, belonged not to the great mass of struggling Americans, but to the new president's most ardent supporters, flamboyant businessmen who profited off the pain of the housing bust and were now poised to steer the ship of state for at least the next 4 years. As Trump reached out his hand and swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, his close friend and inaugural committee chair, Tom Barack, stood behind him, smiling in a blue scarf and black overcoat. Afterward, Barack and Trump embraced at the U.S. Capitol's inaugural platform. The homewreckers had arrived. Barack didn't take an official position in the Trump administration, reportedly turning down an offer to be White House Chief of Staff, Treasury Secretary, or Ambassador to Mexico. Roger Stone told me
He could have had any position he wanted, but working for the government would have meant making a lot less money. I don't think he has the belly for public service, Stone observed. Other homewreckers had no such qualms. If they changed the rules of the game now, they could make more money later. Steve Mnuchin, by now dubbed the foreclosure king by his critics, was confirmed as Treasury Secretary. His top deputy at One West, the bank, Joseph Otting, became the nation's chief bank regulator, the comptroller of the currency. Wilbur Ross, the bankruptcy tycoon who bought Florida's Bank United, became the Commerce Secretary, charged with everything from negotiating trade deals to overseeing the U.S. Census. Steve Schwarzman, the chairman of Blackstone, became chair of the White House's Strategic and Policy Forum, a group of business leaders who were to meet regularly with Trump. Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase was named vice chair. Though the group disbanded over the summer after Trump's statement that bigotry and violence on many sides were responsible for a white nationalist killing a counter-protester in Charlottesville, Virginia, Schwarzman, along with Barack, is said to be among a small group of outsiders, including Sean Hannity, who are put directly through to the president rather than being routed through the normal communications channels. Hannity reportedly chats with Trump nightly. Schwarzman has flown on Air Force One. On February 12, 2017, less than a month into Trump's presidency, while the commander-in-chief was dining with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan at his Mar-a-Lago golf club, Schwarzman threw a massive 70th birthday bash at his Four Winds estate, barely a mile and a half away. This time, neither Donald nor Melania Trump could make it, but daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner did, along with Mnuchin, Ross, and a who's who of high finance and culture, from Henry Kravis, co-founder of the hostile takeover firm Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, to the fashion designer Donatella Versace. The party featured live camels, trapeze artists, fireworks, and a gondolier. Schwarzman's tennis courts were covered with Asian-themed staging. The man who'd hired Patti LaBelle to sing Happy Birthday for his 60th was serenaded by Gwen Stefani on his 70th. After Happy Birthday, the peroxide pop star took a, quote, a quick twirl with the birthday boy around a dance floor constructed inside a two-story tent where acrobats shimmied and jumped, the New York Times reported. Unlike a decade before, when Schwarzman's glorious pre-bust bash sparked condemnation from sources as conservative as the Wall Street Journal, this time the festivities sparked very little blowback. In her story, Bloomberg reporter Amanda Gordon reveled in the comparison with Schwarzman's 60th. There were some differences, though, she wrote. Remember that beautiful fur coat on Melania Trump? It was New York in February on a weeknight. This time, no bundling required, with many folks golfing and swimming all day before a balmy night and fireworks alongside a full moon. Howard Marks, the co-chairman of Oak Tree Capital, a vulture firm that had bought and flipped 3,000 foreclosures, told Gordon, quote, "The world is an uncertain place. A lot of people are unhappy with a lot of other people. There are a lot of things that people are upset about. So it's nice to have an evening where everybody's happy, harmonious, and upbeat." End quote. There was a lot of celebrating to be had. In June, the gang got together for the marriage of Steve Mnuchin and his third wife, actress Louise Linton, almost 2 decades younger than him. And then it continues from there. The book is Homewreckers by Aaron Glantz.
I put a spell on you, 6 robed in the night. You hear no arguments, but still you're ruling my side. 'Cause you're mine, every shadow ruling, every whispered line. The Constitution cries, but you don't decline. 'Cause you're mine. Precedent's broken, like glass on the floor. I whisper my anger, and you open the door. 'Cause you're mine. You fear my followers waiting outside. You fear the fury you can't survive. So you're mine.
35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. This is Louise's song about the Supreme Court. It's great. All right, the U.S. is in armed conflict with drug cartels, says Donald Trump. He really wants to have a war. I mean, you know, it worked well for Ronald Reagan going after Grenada, helped get him reelected. It worked well for George W. Bush having his little wars with Afghanistan and Iraq, helped him get reelected. Didn't work so well with George Herbert Walker Bush because his little war only lasted 3 days. So, you know, the lesson, as George W. told his biographer in 1999, Mickey Herskowitz, he said, you know, you got to have a war that lasts at least until the election if you want to. So Trump is looking at, you know, 2026 and 2028, and I think he wants to have a war. And so we've killed more people now, more fishermen. We've got reports now from women who are saying their husbands were fishermen and they went out to fish and then got blown out of the water. Henry Waxman, the congressman, he says the Trump administration is trying to justify the use of military force the same way the Bush administration justified the war against al-Qaeda. He said Bush, however, had authorization from Congress. And that's a big difference. You know, remember the debate? I mean, Hillary Clinton voted for that. Recall that? I mean, that was something that she later apologized for. Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, says the drug cartels are despicable, but the Trump administration has offered, quote, no credible legal justification, evidence, or intelligence for these strikes. And now we're flying F-35s over Venezuela, and Venezuela is pissed. They slammed what they called an illegal incursion yesterday by U.S. fighter jets. Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino said 5 U.S. fighter jets had, quote, dared to approach the Venezuelan coast and been turned back by their Air Force. Trump has dispatched 10 F-35s to Puerto Rico to stage them for Venezuela. He also sent 8 warships and a nuclear submarine. And 14 people have been killed. I guess it's now 18 people have been killed by Donald Trump with no legal basis, no congressional authorization, no findings of fact, merely asserting that they're running drugs, which, by the way, is not a capital offense. So, wild stuff. I'll get to the Geeky Science in the next hour. Stick around for that. What's on your mind today? Alex in Long Beach, California. Hey, Alex, what's up?
Hi, I wanted to just say 3 things. The first one is I'm so happy that you're online. I wish more people were as brave as you to keep on broadcasting the truth.
Thank you.
The second is, I'd like to make a request, and I hope you would consider it. A lot of people in the right consider migrants illegal aliens. And I think that's estranging, just divisive, inflammatory, and degrading toward that population.
Agreed.
I would much rather hear you and other people use the term irregular immigrants or undocumented immigrants, because it really, like you state on your one of your messages, it gives them a them. Connotation, and it's not.
I typically try to use the phrase undocumented people or undocumented immigrants. Occasionally I'll say illegals or something like that when I'm using their shorthand. But I get it, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I think I mentioned that I think when Jimmy Kimmel was out, Diego Luna was hosting for him, and he quoted statistics from Bloomberg and stated that last year, I believe, undocumented immigrants contributed $100 billion in taxes. So I just wanted to say that because if anyone's interested in watching that video, it's on YouTube or anywhere you want to look for it. But I just wanted to say that, in these harsh times where they're cutting everything, I really want people to understand that undocumented immigrants do contribute to society. And I think, we should stand up for anyone who needs assistance and anyone who, who's being persecuted.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's essential if we want to save our souls, essentially. I mean, it's essential to our humanity that we recognize the humanity of other people. And now that Trump has started this policy 3 days ago of actually tearing children from their mothers again and trafficking them into Christian foster care. This is just so brutal. This is, Stephen Miller proclaiming his love when he was 17 years old, his love of torture. That's what's going on right now, and it's just wrong. Alex, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Catherine in Chicago. Hey, Catherine, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. I have 2 points I'd like to make, please. The first one is we really need to stop waiting for the Republican Party as a whole, or even any of them individually, to come to the correct side of this, because all they're doing is playing the carrot game. They're just dangling a carrot, trying to keep us passive until they get to do absolutely everything they want to do. We should not be waiting for any of them anymore. Number 2, I'm out here in Chicago, and Broadview is about 14 miles from me, and things are starting to escalate. And in addition to that, there are a lot of mixed feelings about it around here. Some people absolutely hate the situation, of course, for obvious reasons. Other people seem to be fine with it.
There's a lot of white racists in this country. What's in Broadview? What am I missing here?
Broadview is where the ICE facility is.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Broadview is a suburb shortly outside of main Chicago, and they have the Illinois State Police, they have the Cook County Sheriff, they have the Broadview Police, they have lots of other police officers from many of the surrounding suburbs. It's ridiculous. And these people, the protesters, of course, they're unarmed, they're vulnerable, they don't have any of the capacity to fight these jerks off, and they're, it's pretty lousy. But then again, the mixed feelings are that some people around here are perfectly fine with what's happening, and they make fun of it, and it's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, they're the
so
good
it's very
Germans.
indicative of what could be happening around the country very soon, and we need to get on it somehow.
Yeah. We've got Americans who are behaving like the good Germans, and it's not a good thing. So thank you very much for that, Catherine. Thank you. Jim in Valley Center, California. Hey, Jim, what's up?
Good morning. I've got a unique question for you. Please tell me what's happened to Bill Maher. And the second one is.
Well, let me answer that one first. I just don't know. He is a multimillionaire. I mean, that might have something to do with it. His show was kind of getting wobbly in terms of the ratings. It may be that he's chasing ratings, knowing that the media, CNN put him on, and I don't think they would have probably put him on if he had continued being the far left Bill Maher. But now that he's the Republican-friendly Bill Maher, I think he's okay for CNN. So it might just be a cynical decision. I mean, I've been on his show 4 times. I still get royalty checks from it because I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. But I don't know Bill personally. I've been on his show 4 times. I went to his Christmas party a couple of years ago, but I just don't. And his old producer is a dear friend of mine. But I don't really have any insights into what's going on right now, and I haven't watched his show in years, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so then the next question I have, the other morning on Joe Scarborough, the Democrats were consistently, they're saying that, we're not fighting back and we're not asking about why don't Democrats get a spine and ask about how the undocumented cannot receive medical benefits, and that they're lying about it, that they are receiving it, the Republicans. And so then he got a Republican leader on there, and for the entire interview, he didn't ask the questions that they were criticizing Democrats for not asking.
He being Bill Maher, you mean?
It was one of, Joe Scarborough.
Oh, Scarborough, yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of people in our media who literally make millions of dollars a year, who are looking at, the viability of their continuing. And I'll tell you, if I was faced, and I've been in this situation, by the way, back when I was at Air America, I had the network try to censor me on a couple of occasions, and I just said, if you don't like it, take me off the air. That's my position right now. If somebody doesn't like what I have to say, take me off the air. I'll make it through. Jim, thanks a lot for the call.
That's why I've listened to you for 15 years.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. It's the hour. We'll be right back. Stick around. And welcome back, Roland in Roanoke, Virginia. Hey, Roland, what's on your mind today?
Yes. Am I on now?
You are live and on the air.
Oh, wonderful. I have run across a couple of phrases that I thought were very powerful, and I thought I ought to try to share them with somebody.
Go for it.
The first one, I was arguing about a factual matter with a Republican relative a few years ago, and she finally got really frustrated with me, and she said, it doesn't matter what's really real or what's really true. You're supposed to just pick one side and stick with them and always say they're right and always say the other side is wrong.
Really?
And for me...
That's a confession.
Yeah. Well, she just got really frustrated and fed up with me after several long minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized I've heard a couple of other Republicans say more or less the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a variation on this is my tribe, and I'm sticking with them. I get it.
Yes, yes. And the second phrase is one I have used on other people that seem to impress them. When arguing with conservative or Republican acquaintances about being pro-choice, I would say to them, no one should ever be required to allow another organism to live inside them, no matter how it got there. And once, a couple of times, people have said to me, well, if that's what the pro-choice people would say, then I might agree with them, or I might at least listen to their arguments.
That's interesting.
But that's not what they say.
Yeah.
What they say is that it's just a little blob of protoplasm.
Well, at first it is.
Well, yeah. Well, I know. But they would say that's not what the pro-choice people say. And I'm like, I just said it. I'm one of them. That's what I said to you. And there's like, no, that's not what they say. And I realized that the pro-choice they were thinking of were probably straw man people talking on Fox News or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just thought that if that is a persuasive argument for someone who has never heard it phrased that way before, that it might be worth just tossing it out there.
I think the pro-choice argument is almost always a religious argument. And that comes down to, when do you believe that life begins? Do you believe that, as it says in Genesis, life begins when the first breath is taken? Or do you believe, and in fact, that's why in the Old Testament, if you beat up a pregnant woman and she miscarries, then you have to pay her husband a certain amount of money, a certain number of shekels or whatever it was. Or do you believe, as the Catholic Church teaches, that life begins at the moment of, actually even before the moment of conception? This is why the Catholic Church opposes birth control, because, in their mind, the moment that mom and dad decide to hop into bed and get it on, that's the moment when life begins, and there shouldn't be a rubber in the way, or cream or anything else. So, I think it ultimately has become a religious argument, Roland. Roland, I got to run, but thanks for the call. Good suggestions. Thank you. It's 49 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds, and we will continue the conversation, picking up your calls. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
born in a mansion of winners and losers. Kindness was weakness, shame never shown. Roy Cohn whispered, attack and destroy, a gilded facade built on failure alone. The hunger for power, the need for control, a perfect machine for a heart without soul. The last American president.
Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls. Here, Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, what's up?
Happy Frias Day.
Happy Frias Day to you.
Love is about to flow in the United States again, Tom.
I hope you're right, Keno.
Okay, here's the deal. We got to concentrate on bearing false witness against your neighbor, which Trump did when he made that video putting vile profanity in the mouths of Schumer and Jeffries. He bore false witness. That's breaking the 10 Commandments. He's a sinner.
Yeah.
The nation has to realize, the religious leaders, including Pope Leo, to point out that Trump has sinned, an insidious sin, when he's used technology, artificial intelligence, to bear false witness against the loyal opposition, the people that should be honored as a loyal opposition, trying to help us all go straight and correct each other from seeing the world from different viewpoints. So I asked Pope Leo, now he's made some comments against Trump recently, but he and other religious leaders need to point out, and in this age of technology, Tom, this has got to be a master sin, that technology and artificial intelligence cannot be used to bear false witness against people. Then life becomes intolerable.
Yeah.
And so that's a new sin. We got to talk about sin, but sin there can be forgiveness. People can be redeemed. People can, and Trump can be redeemed by being put out to pasture. There's a time for a new coalition, the painted bridle, put a bit in his mouth. And there are some Republicans working behind the scenes to invoke the 25th Amendment. And look at Cruz. Liberals need to call him and tell him, thank you for speaking out for Kimmel. We've got to build a coalition of Republicans that see the light, that Daddy Don.
Well, the first time you called into this program, Keno, a couple of years ago, you identified yourself as a Republican and wanted to challenge me on some issues, and you've kind of changed your mind over the years, it seems.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm guessing you still have friends who are Republicans. Do you think that these kind of arguments will fly?
Tom, it's time, yes. People are beginning to see that Daddy Don is Dumpsy, out of his mind, and getting worse. And so Ted Cruz, look, he's a Cuban. He knows what happened to his country. And Marco Rubio is a possible sleeper for when the changeover takes place. And do you think that we should promote the idea that Vance uses 25th Amendment? Would it be better to keep Trump? This argument among some people I've been hearing, is it better to keep Trump, or is it able to get behind Vance to invoke the 25th Amendment and put him out to pasture?
Well, Vance isn't going to do that until he has really no choice. And Trump has, while his senility is showing, I don't think that he has gone so far that he's not capable of doing his job. And I don't like the way he's doing his job, but
we got to hope that the Republicans, he keeps doing enough to invoke the Republicans to join with some the painted bridle coalition, the Democrats and Republicans working together to retire Trump.
Yeah.
And
well, at the over the short term, because I don't think that's going to work. But hope springs eternal, of course. But over the short term, what we need to do is just stop him. And standing up against this continuing resolution, I think is a good start that the Democrats are doing it. They have found a spine.
The religious people among the Republicans need to understand that Trump has committed a sin against one of the 10 Commandments. He bore false witness against his neighbor, and that's insidious.
I'm with you, Keno. I'm with you. We're starting to get redundant here, so I'm going to move along. But, Keno, it's always so nice to hear from you. Happy Frias Day. Thank you for the call. Barry in Everett, Washington. Hey, Barry, what's up?
I have two questions. First is, how can it be possible that essentially 100% of Republicans continue to vote in support of Trump, not 90%? It's for voting for things that most of them acknowledge they don't support.
I think there's two reasons. One, they live in these right-wing media bubbles where they don't realize what the actual positions of the Republicans are. And two, there's an intense sense of tribalism. Tribalism is a human instinct. And it's not just humans, it's all primates. And probably multiple species on top of that. And so once we've defined ourselves as a tribe, and defining a tribe is really kind of the same thing as branding. And Trump understands this really well, and the Republicans understand this really well. They have created this sense, this brand, this sense of tribe. We're the guys who like NASCAR. We're the guys who what you can fill in the blanks. You know what I'm talking about. The Democrats have not done a good job of branding. They have not, they used to. I mean, under FDR and LBJ, Democrats were the party of the unions. Democrats were the party of the working guy. Biden was doing that. He just was incompetent at communicating it. He had everything he needed to do the branding for the Democrats, but never did it. And his comms people, the people who worked in the Biden White House, were just deeply and profoundly incompetent when it came to messaging and communication. I mean, it's just a tragedy that for 4 years we never had really competent people in the White House who were communicating these messages. And now, of course, you see them on TV and you see them, doing podcasts and stuff and saying, "Yeah, I worked in the Biden administration." And every time I see them, I'm going, "Then why didn't you do your damn job?" But this is what we've got here, Barry. And that's why it is the way it is to a large extent. On top of the fact that the Republicans control most of the media now, they've got this massive media machine, and there's very little media left that even leans left. So, Barry, thanks for the call. And the big one, MSNBC, half the people on it are former Republicans, or people from the Biden administration, who were part of the problem in terms of being incompetent communicators. So here we are. Anyhow, we'll be back on the other side of the break with the Geeky Science, the 1%. I got a bunch of stuff for you. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Richard Wolff's Understanding Socialism. This is from the introduction. Socialism is a kind of yearning for a better life than what capitalism permits for most people. Socialist yearnings are as old as capitalism itself because they are its products. Where and when capitalism's problems and failings have accumulated criticism and critics, socialist voices have arisen. And so it is again now. Any serious discussion of socialism must begin by acknowledging socialism's rich diversity. Whatever particular aspect of socialism we choose to analyze, they need to be located within socialism's complexity. That avoids presenting one's own interpretation as if it were the entirety of socialism. In this book, I focus on the economic aspects of socialism, how it differs from capitalism in broad outlines. I'm more interested in socialist critiques of capitalism and their implications about socialist alternatives than in the particulars of the few early experiments in erecting socialist systems, USSR, People's Republic of China, and so on, that history so far offers. Finally, my own education and work constrain me to concentrate on Western Europe and North America. Some important aspects of socialism are thus not covered or discussed here. Yearnings for better lives, such as socialism proposes, are not new. In slave societies, the slaves hoped and dreamed of lives less hard and less out of their own control. Their yearning aimed to obtain freedom. They sought social change that would preclude any one person being the property of another. In feudal societies, the serfs, free in the sense that no one owned them, yearned for better lives too. Their subordination to lords included heavy labor and other burdens that they wanted lifted. They hoped and dreamed of a society in which they would not be bound to the land, the lord of that land, and the feudal dues of labor and subservience. The serfs mobilized in the 1789 French Revolution to demand liberty, equality, and brotherhood. In effect, the serfs had expanded on what the slaves had called freedom. In the American Revolution against British King George III, the revolutionaries were neither slaves nor serfs. They were mostly self-employed farmers, craftspeople, and merchants subject to a foreign feudal kingdom. They wanted liberty as individuals to pursue their dreams without hindrance from feudalism or monarchism, whether foreign or domestic. They added democracy to the goals advanced by the slaves and serfs before them. The different systems of slavery, feudalism, and small-scale self-employment produced masses of people yearning for better lives. Eventually, each of those systems provoked revolutions. Many people then sought to break away from and go beyond those systems. The French and American revolutions marked key moments in the social transformations of major pre-capitalist systems into capitalist ones. By capitalist system, we mean that particular organization of production in which the basic human relation is employer-employee instead of master-slave, lord-serf, or individual self-employment. The revolutionaries who wanted and built capitalism hoped and believed the transition to employer-employee relations of production would bring with them the liberty, equality, brotherhood, and democracy they had yearned for. The revolution's leaders promised to themselves and to the people they led that those goals would be achieved. But the transition to capitalist employer-employee relations that increasingly replaced the previous slave, feudal, and self-employment relations of production had unintended consequences. Capitalism soon proved to be different from what its revolutionaries had hoped. While it enabled some people to be more free and more independent than slaves, serf, or self-employed subjects of monarchies had been, it also seriously limited freedom, independence, and democracy for many. Capitalism betrayed many of the promises made by its advocates. It produced and reproduced great inequalities of income and wealth. Poverty proved to be as endemic as capitalism seemed equally adept at producing and reproducing both wealth and poverty. The capitalist rich used their wealth to shape and control politics and culture. Democratic forms hid very undemocratic content. The cyclical instability attending capitalism constantly threatened and hurt large numbers of people, and so on. Growing numbers of employees within capitalism began to yearn for better lives. They defined those yearnings first in the familiar terms of the earlier French and American revolutions: equality, fraternity, liberty, and democracy. They criticized a capitalism that failed to deliver those to most people and demanded social changes to achieve them. Many people still continue to want a better, softer, friendlier capitalism, where government regulates and intervenes to achieve more of what the French and American revolutionaries had yearned for and promised. They are also often self-defined as socialists. However, capitalism's development provoked another, different perspective that also called itself socialism. In that view, capitalism had not broken from slavery, feudalism, and monarchy nearly as much as its advocates had imagined. Slavery had master slaves, feudalism had lord serfs, and monarchy had king subjects as their key sources of their inequalities, lack of freedom, oppressions, and conflicts. The employer-employee relation of production and capitalism generated parallel problems. Capitalism installed monarchies inside individual workplaces, even as monarchies outside workplaces were rejected. Kings mostly disappeared, but inside workplaces, the owners or their designated boards of directors assumed king-like powers. The book Understanding Socialism by Richard Wolff.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program here on Anything Goes Weekend. This is absolutely wild. This is our Geeky Science for the day. A new survey has found that 28.16%, almost a third, of adults in America claim to have had at least one intimate or romantic relationship with an AI. Amazing. They say adults 60 years and older are more likely to consider intimate relationships with AI as not cheating. More than half of Americans claim to have had some kind of relationship with an AI system. The number one platform used to have relationships is ChatGPT. Amazon's Alexa is number 3. Apple's Siri, having a relationship with Siri, really, is number 4. And Google's Gemini is number 5. Amazing. So this is over at VantagePoint Dallas or VantagePointDallasCounseling.com, an article by Michael Salas. You can Google the thing. Meanwhile, we find that the wealth of the top 1% of Americans, now keep in mind the bottom half of Americans, the bottom 50% of Americans control 3% of America's wealth. The top 1% has $52 trillion. That's amazing. The total wealth of the top 10% is $113 trillion, up from $108 trillion in the first quarter of the year. This is just from the second quarter of the year. The top 1% have seen their wealth increase by $4 trillion. 4 million, yeah, 1,000 million is a billion, a million is a trillion. $4 million over the past year, an increase of 7%. Their wealth hit a record $52 trillion in the second quarter. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Consumers in the top 10% accounted for 49.2% of all consumer spending. This is the highest level since data started being compiled in 1989. We are in the modern day equivalent of the Roaring '20s. When the rich got rich, the poor got poor, and the stock market exploded, and then finally the bubble popped. And are we on the verge of the bubble popping? I don't know. I see that Andrew Ross Sorkin yesterday on MSNBC or CNN, CNBC, one of the shows, was saying, if you look technically at the value of stocks as compared to their price-earnings ratio or other historical indices, that the stock market is radically overvalued. In other words, it's in a bubble. And the thing that seems to be driving that bubble is AI. In fact, the thing that seems to be driving our economy right now is AI. If it wasn't for ICE hiring people and AI building data centers like there's no tomorrow, we would not have an economic expansion right now. We would be in a recession. So hang on to your hats and get ready. A good time to be a little more conservative in the way that we spend our money. Meanwhile, the Republicans have stopped talking about the guy who shot up the Mormon church and burned it to the ground. Turns out he was a Trump supporter. He had a Trump sign in his yard. He had a Trump 2020 make liberals cry again T-shirt in a picture with his family on Facebook. And it's interesting. And in fact, there's a theory floating around. Nobody knows for sure exactly why he attacked this Mormon church. One of the more popular theories on social media is that he did so as revenge for Charlie Kirk's killing, because the guy who killed Charlie Kirk was a Mormon. Now, nobody knows right now. Right now, it's all speculation. But here's a couple, the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, raised in a right-wing family, gun culture, the whole bit, no affiliation with any left-wing groups at all. And so they've stopped talking about him. And now the guy who shot up the Mormon church, an open Trump supporter, they're not talking about him anymore. You notice they don't talk about the two guys who were arrested for trying to assassinate Trump. Both of them were former Trump supporters with no connections to any left-wing groups. It's like, they are waiting for some actual left-winger to do something terrible so that they can, turn it into a 3-month-long news cycle. And they will, because they control so much of the media. But they just have not been lucky in that regard recently, apparently. Meanwhile, Donald Trump yesterday falsely claimed that he had presided over record black employment and declared the Democrats the party of Satan. Honest to God. He retweeted this. Now, nobody has actually seen Donald Trump since his appearance before the generals. And there's a lot of speculation about what's going on. Is he getting another infusion? Is his hand going to be all bruised again? What's in the infusions? There's some people speculating, is it plasma from young people? Is it children's blood? I don't know. I mean, it's something's going on. And it seems like on the 24th of every month he vanishes. Maybe that's his infusion date. I don't know. But he's been slurring his words lately. It's right up at the top of rawstory.com if you want to see the story. But what Trump tweeted yesterday was the Democratic Party is dead. It is the party of hate, evil, and Satan. They have no leadership, no message, no hope. Their only message for America is to hate Trump, which is just wrong. I mean, the Democrats have lots of hope. They've got a serious, well-formed program, and they're sticking up for the average American. They're really fighting for working-class people. But, don't ask Republicans about that, or for that matter, don't ask the news media about that. So what's on your mind? It's Anything Goes weekend here. Nina in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Nina, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is, do you think, in your ultimate wisdom, that there are people in this country that are interested in a civil war and would engage, and that other countries like Great Britain or Canada or any number of countries would come to help us get rid of the MAGAs? Yeah, two questions. Number one, yes, there are people in America who have been preparing for a civil war. I used to know them back in Michigan in the 60s, and when I was a kid. Two of my friends had parents who were in the Michigan militia or affiliated with it, and they would go out in the woods with their semi-automatic weapons and do target practice and stuff like that. And they were dead serious about getting ready for the war. And you got these preppers and all these other folks. Now, the preppers aren't necessarily the Civil War folks, but there are a bunch of them. With regard to whether the UK or Canada or anybody else will save us, even if we devolve into a civil war, which I expect is extremely unlikely. No, they won't. No country's going to intervene. But good questions, Nina. Thank you very much for calling and asking. Larry in Los Angeles. Hey, Larry, what's on your mind today?
A few things.
It's supposed to be Jobs Friday, right? Today is the day that the federal government was supposed to release the job statistics?
Yeah, but Donald Trump has only seen about 500,000 jobs created this year so far. Joe Biden was up to 1.2, 1.3 million by this time. In fact, in the 8 months before he left office, he was at 1.2 million. And Donald Trump sort of has been there for 8 months, and he only saw about 500,000. Mm-hmm. And Joe Biden also saw more points added to the Dow, and on and on and on. In other words, he beat Donald Trump in every category.
Wasn't that generally true? Don't Democrats almost always beat, Democratic presidents almost always beat Republican presidents in terms of job creation?
Yes. In fact, if you look at the record, the Democratic president beats the guy that they replaced, and they beat the guy who replaces them.
Mm-hmm.
And that
every
is,
single
that is
time
from Jimmy Carter all the way up to Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And when you Donald Trump talking about hating Democrats, and then he runs around and claims that the Democratic Party are the haters. And he actually, I don't even hate Donald Trump. I think he's mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And I a record. I try to make it a habit not to hate somebody because their brain is broken.
Hate
Donald
is
Trump's
poison,
brain is
Larry.
broken.
Hate destroys the haters ultimately.
It actually does, and that's the reason why Donald Trump is such a pathetic person.
Yeah,
he has that. That's what he runs on. He runs on hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hate if he were my gardener, I'd be cool with it.
Yeah.
But he somehow gets himself to be president of the United States, and then he goes out there and does evil and does dirt and gets people killed.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I hate. I hate what he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hate the sinner, hate the sin, not the sinner, is the old expression that I learned in Bible school when I was 8 years old.
He keeps running around talking about how he hates the Democrats, and now what does he do? He's stealing money from the states that did not vote for him.
Yeah,
he's trying to make sure that the minorities who did not vote for him, that he punishes them.
Mm-hmm.
These are the actions of a hater.
Yeah,
and that kid that ran over those two girls and killed them. I forget what state it was in. But he was a follower of Kirk. He was a follower of Donald Trump. And
I don't know what you're talking about. When and where did that happen? I missed that.
This is let's see, that was in New Jersey. Huh. Just in a couple of days.
Really?
Couple of days. He and the guy who burned down the church. The reason why he burned down the church because he was actually going out with some woman who was attending that church. And he tried to get into the church, and they refused him because he had all these tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started creating another hatred for somebody, and that hatred led him to doing what he did.
Yeah. Interesting.
And
well, yeah,
so
Larry,
hate destroys you.
Pray for your enemies, right?
Yeah, and the people who hate, what they tend to do is they tend to lie, tell lies on the people who they direct their hatred toward.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump is always directing his hate and always lying on the Democratic Party. And
yeah, it's true. It's true. It's tragic. It really is. It's a tragedy for America that we are here. Larry, thank you so much. And we're here because a tragic percentage of the white population is bigoted, is racist. I mean, it's just that simple.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 18 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Stay with us. And welcome back. Oops. There we go. Alice in Olympia, Washington. Hey, Alice, what's on your mind today? Alice? Alice in Olympia, going once, going twice. Gary in Nooksack, Washington. Hey, Gary, what's up?
Well, I got a couple of quick things for you.
Mm-hmm.
One is if you go to YouTube and you look up VW texting ad, it is it's put out by Volkswagen,
mm-hmm.
but it is the strongest public service thing I've ever seen in my life.
How about texting while driving?
And yep. And I'll tell you what it is real quick. It's a bunch of people go into a theater and they're unsuspecting, and they all sit down and they start watching this pre-movie ad, and it's a dash cam of a car driving down the road. Everything's fine, and the film shows a guy in the control room with a computer, and I don't know how he does it, but he sends everybody a text in the theater. And they all reach for their phones, and while they're looking down, this car crashes into a tree. And it's the most powerful scene. Yeah. It's the most powerful
That's
scene.
interesting.
And I would have...
You know, in NLP, there's this thing called the
everybody-
fast phobia cure, where you can treat somebody with a phobia, like, you know, they're afraid of spiders or something like that. And the way that you do it is you have them imagine themselves in the theater, in the seats in the theater, watching themselves on the screen in the theater have an encounter with a spider. And that's one step away is called dissociation. That one step away gives you the kind of psychological insulation or emotional insulation, so you don't experience the fear. You just observe yourself experiencing the fear, and that blows up the fear. It's an amazing thing. You can Google it, the fast phobia cure, the NLP fast phobia cure. But it sounds like that ad is using that technique. That's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I would advise everybody to show this to their teenage kids, their friends, their young friends, everybody.
Yeah.
My niece was texting and got into a terrible car crash, and the cop got there and said, "What happened, young lady?" And she said, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And they don't know.
Yeah.
Because they're not paying attention.
Right, and they're so used to responding to text messages. Yeah.
I know, and that's everybody in this theater just reaches for their pocket and pulls out their phone automatically.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I would hope everybody views that. And the second point I had was I think the ICE raids and the zeal and the apparent pleasure that these ICE agents are taking in arresting anybody they can find doesn't seem like any American I know.
Yeah. And apparently they've got this thing called Freaky Friday where they're going after children today.
Really?
Yeah. It's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. It's all over social media.
I want somebody to put in a FOIA request and find out who these people are.
Yeah.
I don't need to know their names, but I need to know who they are.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you, Gary. Gary, thank you. And they need to stop wearing masks. It gives them a sense of impunity. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. America is at a crossroads. In my new book, The Last American President, I reveal how Donald Trump isn't a one-off. He's a product of a decades-long scheme by billionaires and corporate oligarchs to destroy our democracy from within. You'll learn how Trump's psychopath father and also his mentor, Roy Cohn, molded him into a weapon for authoritarianism. How billionaire networks built the machinery that made his presidency inevitable, and how our democracy is dying from an empathy deficit that treats human suffering as acceptable collateral damage for profit. But authoritarianism is not inevitable. We can still reform, resist, and reclaim our democracy if we act now. This isn't about left or right. It's about democracy versus authoritarianism, about whether government still serves people or billionaires. The stakes couldn't be higher. Learn the truth and find out how you can save our democracy with The Last American President, my new book. More information at HartmannReport.com.
Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be MAGAs. They'll trade in the facts for conspiracies and swagger. They'd rather blame immigrants, science, and books than take a hard look at the mess in their nooks. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be MAGA. Don't let them wear red hats or chant for New Wall. Make them read history
history, learn empathy too. Not just post memes from their Uncle Jim's view.
25 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. 25 minutes past the hour. Oh, I just said that, didn't I? Mike in Valparaiso, Indiana. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Good.
Hey, I had a kind of a thought experiment. I've been asking the MAGA people, because we got a lot of them here in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I've been asking them is, would you still love Donald Trump? Would you still follow him? Would you still admire him as much as you do? You know, even if he had all the same vile things he said about women, you know, the felonies, the vile things he's done to women, the pictures with Epstein, he's exactly the same. But would you still love him as much if he was the leader of the Democratic Party?
Yeah. You know,
and they always look at me like kind of confused.
Yeah. You know, Lawrence O'Donnell did a brilliant rant about this last night on his program, his opening monologue. And he pointed out that Hillary Clinton, in a private fundraising venue, said that Trump had this basket of deplorables who supported him. And the New York Times and, you know, the mainstream media of America just pounded her for weeks about that, saying, how dare you say this? And then Trump comes along and calls Democratic followers, Democratic voters, vermin. And these people don't say a word about it. Oh, yeah, that's just Trump being Trump. And it's like there's this massive double standard, Mike. It's just obscene. It's insane. And so
well, it is.
Donald Trump would not be allowed in the Democratic Party is a simple answer. I mean, there's no Democrat on earth who would support a guy like that.
I understand that. I understand that. It was just, I'm trying to, like, get inside the box that they live in, like, because I don't understand the mental gymnastics that they have to do on a daily basis to follow this man. But the only other thing I like to ask them and remind them is, and this is very important given, like, the ICE raids and the, you know, the
I'm out of time, Mike. I'm sorry. You got to make your point first. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back on with more of your calls on the other side of the break. Apologies to Mike. Stick around. We'll be right back. The Mythology of the White Proletariat, The True Story of the White Nation by J. Sakai, published by Morningstar Press in 1989. This is from Chapter 2, The Foundations of Settler Life. The life of European settlers and the class structure of their society was abnormal because it was dependent upon a foundation of conquest, genocide, and enslavement. The myth of the self-sufficient white settler family clearing the wilderness and supporting themselves through their own initiative and hard labor is a propaganda fabrication. It is the absolute characteristic of settler society to be parasitic, dependent upon the super-exploitation of oppressed peoples for its style of life. Never has Euro-American society completely supported itself. This is the decisive factor in the consciousness of all classes and strata of white society from 1600 to now. Settler society was raised up above the level of backward old Europe by a foundation of conquest. This conquest was a miracle drug for a Europe convulsed with the reaction of decaying feudalism and deadly capitalism. Shot into the veins of the Spanish feudal nation, for instance, the miracle drug of the New World conquest gave Spain the momentary power to overrun North Africa, Holland, and Italy before her historical incident waned. Like many such fixes for Euro-Americans, this conquest was addicting. It was habit-forming and rapidly indispensable, not only culturally, but in the mechanism of an oppressor society whose lifeblood was new conquest. We'll examine this later in the relationship of settlerism to imperialism. For now, it's enough to see that this conquest is a material act of great magnitude, an economic and social event as important as the emergence of the factory system or the exploitation of petroleum in the Middle East. We stress the obvious here because the Euro-American settlers have always made light of their invasion and occupation, although the conquered territory is the precondition for their whole society. Traditionally, European settler societies throw off the propaganda smoke screens that they didn't really conquer and dispossess other nations. They claim with false modesty that they merely moved into vacant territory. So the early English settlers depicted America as empty, a howling wilderness, unsettled, sparsely populated, just waiting with a vacant sign on the door for the first lucky civilization to walk in and claim it. Theodore Roosevelt wrote defensively in 1900, quote, "The settler and pioneer have at bottom had justice on their side. This great continent could not have been kept as nothing but a game preserve for squalid savages," end of quote. It is telling that this lie is precisely the same lie put forward by white Afrikaner settlers who claim that South Africa was literally totally uninhabited by any Africans when they arrived from Europe. To universal derision, these European settlers claim to be the only rightful historic inhabitants of South Africa. Or we can hear similar defenses put forward by the European settlers of Israel, who claim that much of the Palestinian land and buildings they occupy are rightfully theirs, since the Arabs had allegedly decided to voluntarily abandon it all during the 1948-49 war. Are these kinds of tales any less preposterous than those put forward by Euro-American settlers? America was spacious and sparsely populated only because the European invaders destroyed whole civilizations and killed off millions of Native Americans to get the land and profits they wanted. We all know that when the English arrived at Virginia, for example, they encountered an urban, village-dwelling society far more skilled than they were in the arts of medicine, agriculture, fishing, and government. This civilization was reflected in a chain of 300 Indian nations and peoples stretching from the Arctic Circle to the tip of South America, many of whom had highly developed societies. There was, in fact, a greater population in these Indian nations in 1492 than in all of Western Europe. Recent scholarly estimates indicate that at the time of Columbus, there were 100 million Indians in the hemisphere, 10 million in North America, 25 million in Central Mexico, and an additional 65 million elsewhere in Central and South America. These numbers have long been concealed since they give rise to the logical question of what happened to this great mass of people. The European invaders, Spanish, Dutch, English, Portuguese, and French, simply killed off millions and millions to safeguard their conquest of the land and provide the disposable slave labor they needed to launch their new world. Conservative Western historical estimates show that the Spanish reduced, in quotes, the Indian population of their colonies from some 50 million to only 4 million by the end of the 17th century. And from the 10 million Indians who once inhabited North America, after 4 centuries of settler invasion and rule, there were in 1900 perhaps 200,000 to 300,000 surviving descendants in the United States. This was the very substantial down payment towards the continuing blood price that third world nations have to pay to sustain the Euro-American way of life. So when we hear that the settlers pushed out the Indians or forced the Indians to leave their traditional hunting grounds, we know that these are just code phrases to refer politely to the most barbaric genocide imaginable. It could well be the greatest crime in all of human history. Only here, the Adolf Eichmanns and Heinrich Himmlers had names like Benjamin Franklin and Andrew Jackson. The point is that genocide was not an accident, not an excess, not the unintended side effect of virile European growth. Genocide was the necessary and deliberate act of the capitalists and their settler shock troops. The book Settlers. The party embraces violence as a political tool. What is the end game? Where does this lead? How does this work out? How does this end? We've seen this in other countries historically. In fact, we tend to refer to them as fascist countries. We saw it in Germany and Spain and Italy in the 30s. We saw it in the 60s in Chile with Pinochet. It appears to be happening now here in America as well. We have Republican politicians calling for violence, calling for civil war, preaching violence and not to mention the former president, Donald Trump, basically begging for violence to defend him. And how does this work out? It tends not to work out well. And there's a whole piece laying out all the details of this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, "What is the End Game for a Party of Violence?" Check it out.
A senator stands with a traitor's tongue, calls us one people, but the song's been sung. Whitewashed lines in a blood-soaked frame, he spits on the dead and defiles their names. This is the new Confederacy, wrapped in flags, fueled by hate. They burn the past to chain the future, but freedom won't share their fate. They torch the truth, they crown the lie, but the graves of heroes won't comply. From Gettysburg to Selma's fight, their ghost army falls to life.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Bill in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
You want to make that safety pin, the paperclip work better?
Yeah, how?
Look at your thumbnail for a second. You see it?
Yeah.
Imagine a small piece of orange cloth. You attach it to that paperclip. Now you can see that paperclip from 50 or 100 feet away.
I see.
Right? Now, when somebody asks you what is that, and you tell them, you give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
You give it to them whether they agree, or you give it to them whether they disagree. You tell them you may need it someday.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. It's kind of like the Orange Revolution in Ukraine back in the day.
You
Except
got
they
it.
were wearing scarves, but I get the point.
You know, like I say, it's communicating with each other that's going to get us through this.
Yeah, I agree.
And if we can do it from 50 feet away, you can look 50 feet away and see that flash of orange, and know you're not standing alone.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it.
It gives a movement more strength to go. Tom, please, next time I tune you in, a piece of orange.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bill.
Somebody asks, you give it to them.
Okay, good talking to you, Bill. Thank you. James in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hey, James, what's up? James?
Once you enter anymore, it doesn't come with it.
James, listening on Sirius XM in Fort Lauderdale? Going once? Going twice? Beachside Bill in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Afternoon, Tom. Hope everybody's well out there. And you mentioned earlier, I caught you. Yeah, everything good here. Well, for the most. Here in Florida, I don't know. But here, me personally, I'm doing okay.
Good.
Florida's a whole other story. But when you mentioned earlier about Trump receiving baby's blood and all, it got my blood boiling because this Sunday I'll have 159 gallons donated, throughout my life. So
that's right. Yeah.
I find it rather insulting that he takes baby's blood. What about other people?
We don't know what he's getting the infusion of, but there are billionaires who are doing this. And, it's...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can Google it. There's one particularly famous guy who was getting blood from his 17-year-old son. A billionaire.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody who's received my blood. I'm sure they're out there alive here in Florida. I wish them all well. That's what I say because I can't meet them. But the other thing is he actually said in his last term, Trump, that immigrants poison the blood of America, and I'll never forget that either. Yeah. That's another thing that really just
that's right out of Hitler.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Blut und Erde, blood and soil.
It's incredible because I find it insulting, and it's just how dare he, insult. And we're all immigrants. That's one thing Trump fails of. We're all immigrants, except for the people who lived here, the indigenous people. The indigenous people. It's just it's incredible that bloodlines have gone throughout the generations. and his is shorter than mine, you know, and you know, my so it's just really just. We're in troubled times here, Tom. I think, well, like the last man said, we've got to keep talking. We've got to keep, you know, spreading the word. I'm getting out there. I'm calling my congressman every day. He's a Republican. I always talk to the machine, you know, but I say grow a spine, but he won't. He loves Trump too much. That's the sad thing. I can't get through.
Or he fears him. I suspect there's more Republicans who fear Trump than love him. Because he does the kind of stuff that if he was a Democrat, they would be screaming from the rooftops about. But yeah, well said, Bill. Bill, thanks a lot for the call. Mark in Janesville, Wisconsin. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Question. I saw a podcast. I'm not going to mention their names, but they were, one was in the Washington Post, and you know who they are, and the other was a political carnival. So we'll just put it out there. Okay. And they had, what was he, Leon Panetta on their show. Mm-hmm. They made the comment, Panetta made the comment that, you know, we need another Bill Clinton to bring the country back together and blah, blah, blah. And that's, you know, probably the best. And I know, you know, they're establishment Democrats. But Carville posed the question that, do you really think the country can be brought back together if possibly they don't want it?
Who's they?
Well, you know, the red and the blue states, and the you know, that is so. What do you do at that point?
Yeah.
You know,
well, first of all, I'm very skeptical of this whole red-blue state thing. You know, most of your deep red states are still 30-40% Democratic, and most of your deep blue states are still 30-40% Republican. And in some cases, you know, you've got states that are, you know, right up against the 50% marks. Number one. And number two, I think the big point that I didn't see the video, but you know, if that's pretty much all they were saying, if they weren't talking about policy, then I agree that you need a very charismatic guy to be leading the Democratic Party, and it's going to take somebody with charisma, somebody who can really get people behind them. You know, so far you know, we got Gavin Newsom and you got J.B. Pritzker. So you've got a couple of people who are stepping up, and they're leading candidates now, in my opinion, for the next Democratic Republic or Democratic presidency. Go ahead.
Do you think that?
And that was Clinton and Obama. They were charismatic,
right? And do you think that, you know, I'm more of a Bernie Sanders type guy?
Yeah, me too.
But do you think that is too far to the left at this point, or I'm just fearful of it? I'm starting to hate that J.D. Vance more than Trump.
Yeah,
Mark, he gets in.
Name one policy that Bernie advocates that is outside the that has less than 70% support by Americans.
Yeah, I can't.
I can't either.
I
There isn't one.
Can't.
There isn't one. He is not. You know, Bernie's not a communist or even really a socialist.
No.
He's an FDR Democrat, but the Democratic Party has gone so far to the right with the Clintonistas that you know that they consider him the far left. It really, you know, they took down Bernie in 2016 and then again in 2018 or 2020 rather. Not, in my opinion, not because of his positions, but because the Clinton machine wanted Hillary to be president. And they thought they were going to do it. You know, they tried in 2016 and failed. And you know, and Trump won with a little help from Russia and a whole lot of help from a bunch of billionaires. And then in 2020, going through the primary, I think, you know, Hillary thought she was going to win again. But, you know, it was the Clinton machine that took him down.
I'm just fearful. I see the still hatred by not only the Republicans, but a lot of the establishment Democrats towards AOC, Bernie, and the young fellow running for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, Zoran Mamdani. Yeah, keep an eye on Mamdani and AOC, by the way, because those two, I think, have a real good chance of running for president. Mark, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. Great questions, solid questions. 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Bobby in La Puente, California. Hey, Bobby, what's on your mind today?
Well, we're into it. Fascism slipping into darkness.
We are.
Tom, your show, honestly, I'm so grateful. Me and Vivian, what we try to do, be a mouthpiece. Okay, I'm not technical, genius or what I do. Go to meetings, the Teamster meetings, get on a podium. Free Speech TV, folks, we're in fascism. They're taking away our health care, our radio stations. They're being monopolized. Wake up. Mm-hmm. And some people are comfortable, but they're waking up. Okay, what inspired me the other day, a young man that came over and drops off my medicine. He was a Bernie supporter, door to door, young man, maybe in his late 20s. He took a picture of Free Speech TV, gave it to his girlfriend. She loves the station. So pass it on like a triple effect, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. Vivian can do it at her meetings. I go to 12-step meetings. You have to wake up. Don't get too comfortable. Wake up.
Yep.
Free Speech TV, honestly, because we're into it.
Yep.
And then what inspired me, I was telling Mateo, there's a video, and I suggest for everybody to watch it and listen to it. It's a music video by the Animals. It's called Sky Pilot. But with the World War II video, it shows the fascism, the Nazis. Then they have the priest giving blessing the soldiers. Beautiful lyrics.
Wow. That's the Animals who did the House of the Rising Sun, as I recall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sky Pilot, but the World War II footage. It got me emotional. I thought I seen my dad. Your dad enlisted to fight fascism.
Yeah, he did.
Your dad had the spirit of the Viking. His heart was in it.
Yeah.
And we have to remember the spirit of those men, the bravery. Like I told Mateo, my dad was in North Africa. My brother researched North Africa, Normandy, second wave, 29th Division. Then went into Germany eventually. Concentration camps he was sharing. Bob, they had lamps out of human skin. And my dad never spoke about the war much. The most we did is combat on TV.
Yeah.
But he hated the Nazis, so we cannot forget. Then I told Mateo, we inherited his PTSD. You think I'm going to give up? I lost 3 brothers because of it. Wow. I went into addiction, and I conquered my own demons. So I'm here to fight. Nobody's going to put me down. But what I learned, Tom, through my program, a word, love, is thrown around. I love you, but it's an action word. What I heard, what you do is an act of love. What Louise does is an act of love. Your callers, when they call in, is an act of love. That's the way I want to look at it, Tom, because I know what hate is. I know Trump, believe it or not. Revenge, I had revenge. When he's a untreated wounded child, is what he is.
I believe so.
He acts out.
In fact, the first part of my book talks about that. Yeah.
Is that right? Well, you inspired me, Tom. I want to get to reading. I have my own story why I wasn't educated. Part of it's PTSD, and that's another story for another day. But people keep on pushing. Watch the video, and let those World War II brave men brave. So thank you, Tom, Louise, all of you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Keep on pushing. You know me. Keep pushing, Tommy.
Always good to hear from you, Bobby. Thank you. Back at you. We love you too. Thank you so much. It's 49 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a second. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Charles in Vancouver, Washington. Hey, Charles, what's up? Charles in Vancouver, watching us on YouTube. God, Charles has been on hold for a while there. Going once, going twice. Ouch. CJ in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey, CJ, what's on your mind today?
Oh, man, I feel bad for Charles just there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Charles.
Quickie thing real quick. AOC has an asteroid named after her on how smart she is, number 23238. You can look it up at the Small Body Database lookup at the NASA JPL website. Yeah, and she got it in high school a decade before she got into politics.
Really? Wow.
So,
she was a science geek.
Right, something to do with microbiology. But anyway, the main point, though, was the Hillary Clinton basket of deplorables speech. Most people only heard the Associated Press video of it. They chopped off the main part of her speech was about this second basket of Trump supporters. She said, to be overly generalistic, you could put half of of Trump supporters in what I call the basket of deplorables, and went on to say sexist, racist, blah blah blah. If you're not any of those, even if you were his supporter, you weren't a deplorable in her view. She said the other half were people who felt left behind by the system. Nobody cares about them. They see their communities drying up. They don't believe necessarily what all Trump says, but they followed him because they thought he held out hope for them. And she said Democrats needed to reach out to them.
Yes, I remember that.
Never heard that.
I reported on that at the time. No, it was available. That information was available.
It's at YouTube still has it under CBS News, not under, the AP archive is the chopped off version.
Yeah. Well, thank you, CJ, for sharing that. I appreciate it. Good talking to you. Mike in Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Tom, I was watching C-SPAN this morning and saw a new Trump AI commercial with Trump and Russell Voigt as the Grim Reaper. Russell Voigt is Trump's Project 2025 author and Trump's OMB director.
Right.
He is deciding on government shutdown cuts to blue states right now.
Yep.
The video is playing the song Don't Fear the Reaper by the band Blue Oyster Cult from the 70s. That song was also on Saturday Night Live with Christopher Walken when they said more cowbell. I think this video is really childish by the Trump administration.
Yeah.
All he's doing now is playing AI videos.
I know. They're playing they're trying to bring in basically, 18 to 25-year-olds. And, via gamer forums and via these AI videos, and it's juvenile and all that sort of stuff. But, sadly, it's effective. I mean, this kind of spreading hate and smear and humor. I mean, they think this is their idea of funny. And, sadly, Mike, thanks for that. Thanks for the heads up on that. It's spot on. Elizabeth in Seattle. Hey, Elizabeth, what's on your mind today?
Hey, yeah, somebody kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, saying we're all immigrants, but I wanted to go further and say the forefathers and everybody who came here, they came here illegally. So I just get tired of this us and them kind of like we're not on the same level at all.
Yeah, the people who actually lived here, at first they welcomed them, but pretty soon they figured out, wait a minute, it's like, whoa.
Nope. And then they just created laws to keep everybody else out and, make it a system so that they decide, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole thing is false. I mean, if they want to talk to the true citizens of this country, consult the tribes,
Yep, absolutely. Elizabeth, well said. Well said. Thank you for the call. Yeah. Deborah in Cleveland, Ohio. Hey, Deborah, what's up?
Hi, Mr. Hartmann, thank you for taking my call. I have a thought that since the GOP or Republicans or billionaires own the computer platforms, podcast, cable, and corporate media, how about Democratic Party, liberals, and others put their message on billboards?
I agree. We've had a couple people call this week and propose that because billboards are cheap, $1,000 a month, for a good one.
And Mr. Hartmann, they're also tax deductible, are they not? Could the Democratic Party write that off as a campaign?
Well, the Democratic Party is nonprofit to begin with. They don't pay taxes.
Okay,
but individuals can buy billboards too.
Of us,
yeah, no, it wouldn't be tax deductible if you bought a billboard.
Or we could figure out something. I'm saying
there are nonprofits out there that do buy billboards, and you can donate to those nonprofits. And you'd have to look around to see who's doing that right now, because I'm not sure. But I know during the last election there were a couple of nonprofits that popped up that were buying billboards. There was one in particular that was buying a lot of billboards. They were doing some good work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I was thinking we can keep the messaging short and succinct, maybe 2 or 3 topics, all in red, white, and blue, warning in red, blue lettering, starting out with why are taxpayers paying ICE to be violent?
Yeah, there you go.
Health care. They're taking your health care from you. Voting, they're taking your vote, your right to vote. That's your they're taking your right to decide for yourself. They're taking your vote.
Well, as Greg pointed out, they're purging hundreds of thousands of people from the voting rolls in Virginia as we speak, because they're getting ready for the election in November, and you've got a Republican governor and a Republican Secretary of State. Deborah, thank you for the call. I got to run here. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. Hey, special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carna Verdi, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, and Ruben Michaels, all the fine people working on this program. And thank you to you for spreading the good word about our program and about the networks or stations that we're on, telling your friends. It's really an important time to be doing that. So get out there, get active, tag Yourit. Have a wonderful weekend. I will catch up with you on Monday. Stay safe.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.